Hello, folks. Welcome back to the fridge. I'm joined again by BKC for something a little bit different, a little bit of an impromptu idea I had. I thought I'd bare my soul today and show the people my Letterboxd account, all my movie ratings. And BKC is a film connoisseur working on a film right now, also a Pokemon pro, a multi-layered individual. And I'm sure he has some strong opinions on all my film ratings, so I thought I'd just invite him on to see what he thinks of my Letterboxd.
Okay, I won't be much of a snob because, well, maybe if it calls for it, if it's fun. But no, generally I am very good at.
If there's anything to stick out, I would love to get into a heated argument. If anything sticks out.
Well, you're making it hard for me at the beginning because Barry Lyndon is obviously great. While I would love to say, oh well, Barry Lyndon's pretty good, but have you seen Peter Greenaway's Draftsman's Contract, which is basically Barry Lyndon but better? You know, I don't think I can quite make that statement because I don't think even those people believe it. Raging Bull is incredible, obviously.
Yeah, these are my top
Grave
four,
of the
folks. So
Fireflies.
then on Letterboxd, you can put a top four on your profile. So these are my top four films of all time here, which are they're pretty equal to me. I think Barry Lyndon's probably my number one if I had to pick one. But
Raging Bull is Raging Bull is messed up because it's such a feel bad movie. I've seen it 3 times, I think. And every single time I've seen it, like I just feel so terrible after.
Yeah,
For those who aren't familiar, it's about the worst guy you've ever met in your life and how he's just okay. That's oversimplifying it, but basically, it's about a boxer based on a real guy and his own memoir, and he ruins his life. And the one thing he's good at, I think this will actually strike a chord for a lot of Pokemon players because he is an incredible boxer. You know, one of the best in the world, if not the best, for his weight class. And the thing is that beyond boxing, he is abhorrent. He is just the worst. He gets this girlfriend who's way too young for him. He marries her, and he's unbelievably insecure and unbelievably jealous. And whenever she so much as exists in the presence of another man, he starts accusing her of doing something she very obviously didn't do. At one point, he accuses his own brother of doing something with her. It's horrifying stuff. Yeah, and he just gets worse over time. So the Pokemon connection is, of course, we have plenty of players who are, you see this debate all the time about certain players who were, ousted for certain conduct. People go, yeah, but they were really good at Pokemon. And it's like, okay, they also said some of the most heinous stuff I've ever seen, even by internet standards. So, yeah. And there's this one, Jim, I'm sure you remember it. There's this one horrifying shot right after he's accused his wife of, being with his brother. And then she's like escaped to the other apartment because they live close to each other. And she's with their kids, and you see him walking down the hall, and as soon as he gets there, he's going to start, beating the daylights out of her. But you just have to watch him walk down the hall, and she doesn't know that he's coming. And it's like 5 seconds, which feel like the longest 5 seconds of your life. Ugh, horrifying stuff.
That's an amazing summary. Movie. Yeah, I feel like there's no biopic or sports movie like this at all. It's like honest in a way that none of them are. And there's so many biopics that kind of mythologize people. I love that this is just like an honest look at this terrible person who was a great boxer. You're absolutely right. And I love that it's in black and white, something that adds to it in a way I can't fully put my fingers.
I know what you mean. Like putting it into words can almost cheapen it. And I think a lot of people have that where they have a movie they really love and they can't really explain why. But even think of it like this: the artsy director ever, Robert Bresson, he said he would rather people feel a movie before they understand it. So you're totally fine. I like it too. I think it's also good for the period setting because it is set in the first half of the 20th century. Because it spans like 20 years or something. Because by the end, he's just he's not even boxing anymore. But yeah, I think you're right about a lot of other sports movies not doing, not being like this. One that pops into mind that's pretty good is Aronofsky's The Wrestler with Mickey Rourke.
I've heard of that one. I was gonna watch that.
It's pretty good. I'm not as crazy on it as I once was, but it does hit some really, really brutal spots. But Raging Bull is in a class of its own. What's really fun is there are two movies which, when you see them, you can see where a lot of the influence on Raging Bull came. There's one called Rocco and His Brothers from Luchino Visconti, who's one of Marty's favorite directors. If you look up like any interview with him, he'll talk about how much he loves The Leopard. Um, but Rocco and His Brothers is a black and white movie about poor Italian family, and one of them becomes a boxer. And it's incredible. It's 3 hours long. It flies by. It's gorgeous. And the other one is an American movie from the late 40s. It's a film noir. It's called The Setup, and it's incredible. It's like 72 minutes long, and it's in real time, and it's about this washed up boxer, past his prime, played by Robert Ryan, who's fantastic. And he's up against this young hotshot, and as I remember, the mob wants him to throw the fight because it's like, hey, come on. And if this sounds familiar to fans of Pulp Fiction, then yeah. I mean, it was a noir staple, this kind of thing. There's a lot of boxing movies where the mob wants him to throw, and he needs the
True,
money.
that is a common trope, isn't it?
Yeah, it's so good because you feel every punch. You really root for this guy. I remember I watched it on a slow day at work, and there's one like moment where he just like punches the hell out of the other guy, and I was like, "Get him, Ryan, get him!" Yeah, it's really terrific stuff. The camera work is astonishing. So yeah, The Setup and Rocco and His Brothers. If you like Raging Bull, then
I gotta
you
watch
will
that.
adore
Sounds
those.
fantastic.
Yeah, especially because The Setup, 72 minutes, it flies by. So it compensates for Rocco and His Brothers being 3 hours long. Yeah. The other two I saw, Grave of the Fireflies is obviously, a very sad movie.
Let's go back here. My
That's,
top four. Yeah, I got some.
yeah.
I got some tragic films here. Some bleak stuff. We got like a 1984 style dystopia. We got like Barry Lyndon is insanely bleak. Raging Bull. I don't know what's wrong with me. I like to feel sad emotions, I guess.
It's good. No, it's a good thing. It helps you process your own life.
I like a movie that makes me feel something and think about the world. Like
Exactly.
Raging Bull feels like I'm just seeing a real tragedy play out in front of me. It doesn't feel like there's anything being romanticized or fictionalized.
Yeah, no, that's exactly what it is. Yeah, Grave of the Fireflies is, I won't spoil it, but like it's set during World War II, and it's very sad ending. Like this is a famous tearjerker, but I don't think it's a tearjerker in a sort of honest way. I don't think it really lays on like the manipulative violins, because like the tearjerker genre, unofficial genre, is kind of I don't really like those kinds of movies where it's like, okay, well now the guy dies and now you feel sad, because the music's playing and telling you what to feel. But Grave of the Fireflies really comes by it honestly. It's upsetting.
It's just a tragic time in history. A point of view you probably wouldn't think about, like of just these kids, orphaned kids, just trying to survive.
These Japanese World War II movies are really. Japanese World War II movies are messed up, like because a lot of them, like they know they're on the wrong side, a lot of them, and they're like, "What are we doing?" Like there's very little on like the honor of the kamikaze pilots or something like that. And, like indirectly, like a movie like Harakiri is not set anywhere near World War II, but it looks at that kind of honor system that was arguably a big part of what led them into that kind of fascist mindset that a lot of the country was feeling, and then contributed to World War II. But speaking of Harakiri and Kobayashi, he did make a World War II movie called The Human Condition, which is either one 9-hour movie or three 3-hour movies. It's been designated as both, but it's about this one guy who starts out as a conscientious objector. But he's in the army, and eventually he like unwillingly rises through the army and finds himself in the war. So yeah, Grave of the Fireflies strikes a lot of that, but obviously with the child's point of view, which is an incredible device for like my favorite movie is The Spirit of the Beehive, and that is entirely from a child's point of view, and it really makes you realize just how I'm sure everyone's gone through this at some point where they're arguing with someone older than them, and the older person goes, "Oh, you'll understand when you're older," and it doesn't make any logical sense at all. And it just you wind up realizing, oh, they just kind of gave up and said, let me have it my way. I don't care that it doesn't make sense. Um, and so I think the child's POV movies do kind of force you to look at it in that light without any of the adult excuses that people tend to make for themselves, if that makes sense.
Yeah, having them be children is kind of perfect as like innocent civilians in the whole situation that didn't do anything wrong. They're just suffering from the crossfire.
And there's another anime movie that I think is largely from. It's really upsetting because it like shows the nuclear blast. It's called Barefoot Gen or Get.
I think I've seen the clip of that on YouTube. The actual clip.
Oh, it's horrifying. Yeah. And that one, I mean, that would horrify anyone, obviously, no matter who the victims are. But as I remember, only seeing it once 2.5 years ago and being disturbed, I remember there is like a very strong emphasis on the child's point of view there. So Grave of the Fireflies, really good stuff. And it looks incredible too, which, it's not that war movies are supposed to look pretty by any means, but it does illustrate. Again, it illustrates itself honestly, and I really appreciate that.
I love the look of anime from this era, like late '80s, early '90s.
Oh yeah, it's the era of Akira. Yeah.
Yeah, Akira looks great as well.
So the last one is Brazil. I gotta confess, like this is a good movie, but it's the one I'm least enthusiastic on by
really?
far. Yeah, I mean, I like it for sure. It got a great ending. No doubt about it.
I just think it's so creative. Like the world is so cool. It's so cinematic and grand.
It's got a good range of influences. Like it's got that whole German expressionist style to it, which I think it does a good job at. I don't know. There's just something about Terry Gilliam's style in general that bugs me. Like I hate Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas.
I was gonna watch that one.
The things that I like about it, but I feel it's fun for sure. But for all that I appreciate about it, then I feel like I have to sit through a lot of repetition and not in the good way. Like I'm a big fan of repetition to a point, but I feel like this to emphasize a certain point, but I feel like this is the sort of repetition where it's like I have one idea and I'm just going to repeat it, as opposed to repetition to draw out different shades in the idea that I'm presenting. And I don't know. I think the runtime is just really bloated.
I don't remember it dragging when I watched it. I was pretty engaged from what I remember. It has been a while actually. I've seen it a few times.
It's been a while for me too. So I think it definitely merits a rewatch for me. But like there is a lot to like about it, like the 1984 stylings.
Yeah, for those who don't know what the movie's about, it's a dystopian future with 1984 style surveillance, but it's like a completely absurdist version of that. It's Terry Gilliam is from Monty Python, so you can imagine that influenced the style of this a lot, like the absurd and surreal look of everything.
The guy who, for Game of Thrones fans, you'll remember the guy who played what was the guy's name? He played the priest in like season 6 or something.
Sparrow,
the one the High Sparrow. Yeah, him. Yeah, that guy plays the lead here, and he's very good.
He's perfect. I love how he's just like. I like because as a contrast, have you read 1984? Because after I read the book, I gained a new appreciation for this film as like a parody of 1984.
I read 1984 when I was 15. For the first time, and it upset me for like a week. I was
amazing book, obviously, but
yeah. And then I read it again a few years later, and I was like, this is still some dark stuff.
Because the main character of 1984 is like cynical about the government, and he's like, brooding, and he hates everything. But this guy is like a complete dweeb who's bought into the system. He does his job, and then he just sort of accidentally gets swept up in this entire thing because of like a typing error or something. It's kind of hysterical in my opinion.
It does merit a rewatch for sure. Again, like you're setting a very high bar with the other three. So I still like Brazil, and it is the best Terry Gilliam film that I've seen. But just something about his style has just, I don't know, it's just hit some sort of like very dry notes for me. I'm not sure.
Have you seen 12 Monkeys?
I did see 12 Monkeys, and that was another. I have the DVD actually, and that was another example of like there's so much here to like, and I feel like he almost can't get out of his own way in that. And like a lot of the strangeness in 12 Monkeys felt very like self-conscious and sort of affected, as opposed to like the naturalistic insanity of I don't know who you would really compare him to, but like whenever like the obvious choice for like crazy movies is Japan. You know, they make all sorts of insane stuff, but very rarely does it feel affected so much as just a naturalistic kind of extension of what they're like, which is why there's so many of them. And with 12 Monkeys in particular, or Fear and Loathing, then I really for all I was enjoying about it, I really, really thought that it was putting on airs, trying to hit the level of weirdness it was going for, and yeah, and especially because 12 Monkeys is based on a French film, a short French film. It's 30 minutes long. It's called La Jetée, and it's comprised almost exclusively of photographs, and it's incredible. But 12 Monkeys takes the story from it, like very literally, and I think
I
there's a
didn't
lot
realize
of good
that.
about it. But yeah, it's no La Jetée is incredible. It's by a director named Chris Marker, who's made a career out of all sorts of like essay films and experimental stuff. Um, he has a film called Sans Soleil, like which is unlike anything you'll see. And I like everything I've seen from him and read from him. Actually, he had a great essay on Vertigo. Not even a film, but he sort of straight up wrote an essay on why he loves Vertigo so much. Um, which I'm currently in a phase of Vertigo obsession, so I am really remembering it fondly. But yeah, like I remember like when Brad Pitt is doing his like loony routine with the Dutch angle in the hospital, and I just remember thinking like I understand, but it feels very literal. Like yes, I get it, the Dutch angle because it's madness. I get it. Brad Pitt is doing almost a caricature of a crazy guy in a. I don't think it's bad. I just think it's very on the nose and I don't know. I don't demand subtlety from directors, but it feels like concretely literal in a lot of ways. And there's just something missing from me from Gilliam's stuff. But Brazil is by far the most successful that I've seen, anyway.
I get what you mean with the Brad Pitt character in, because his whole plot ended up being like a red herring the whole time anyway, which
Yeah,
sort of cheapened. I don't know. I guess I overall liked that movie quite a bit, but I get where you're coming from with
I
that.
enjoyed it, but like I felt like I should be enjoying it more given everything it has going for it, which is kind of Gilliam for me as a whole.
Fair enough. But this shot right here is messed up to put on.
I mean, again, it's got some monstrous, monstrous stuff.
Why don't we take a look at?
All right,
I'll just show you all my 5 stars. How about we do that? You could probably
sure.
you're seeing some already here. Let's get into some heated arguments here.
Sure.
Is there anything here right off the bat that you look at that you disagree with?
Let's see.
The 5 stars go all the way down to. I haven't given that many. Down to The Shining is the final one. From here to The Shining.
Nothing really stands out as egregious to me. Nothing, which almost a shame. I want to say, what do you mean? I'm not a Lord of the Rings guy, but I understand like people really love those. I like the inclusion of a Battle Royale. That was a huge movie for me when I was a teenager.
What do you think of Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory?
I
My
was going to
buddy
say,
thinks I'm.
what's the thing next to Goodfellas? I don't recognize the
That's
poster.
Willy Wonka.
And the original one, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's a look. I have Mary Poppins at 5 stars, so I am not going to deprive anyone of their childhood favorites that they still love in adulthood. So I don't really have an issue with it. Okay, if we're going to argue, I would say I really have soured on Adaptation since I first watched it.
Oh, really?
Oh yeah, like I appreciate it. Like I remember the opening monologue. I was going, wow, this is going to some dark places. And like again, it has a lot of stuff that I find really funny and interesting. But ultimately, it just felt I don't know. Spike Jonze also hit some sort of dry notes for because I'm not crazy about her either. Um, but being John Malkovich, I liked, but there's just something Well, it's mostly a Charlie Kaufman movie, which is how we look at it, right? And I don't mind overly self-indulgent things. It's just I admire the structure, and I don't even mind the indulgence of, literally turning this movie about the flowers into a movie about how we can't write the movie about the flowers, and then making this movie about that. I don't have any issue with that. It's just like when it turns into like the action movie parody in the second half, I was just like, okay, I get it. It's being written by his brother, the idiot. Um, it just kind of strikes me again as sort of that almost Gilliam-esque blend of, forced wackiness. Like, oh, two Nicolas Cages, and one Nicolas Cage is already super wacky. And again, there's a lot to like.
So, for those who don't, this is one of the weirdest movies ever made, I reckon, conceptually. It's
oh, absolutely, absolutely.
The story of it is that Charlie Kaufman was commissioned or something to make an adaptation of this book about a guy who steals flowers, and he couldn't figure out how to write the script, so he just had a huge writer's block, and he was stressed about it. So he made the movie about himself writing the movie and having writer's block and his own life at the time, and then it became this self-aware parody of like his own. He was like upset with himself at his pretentious nature. I think it is insanely it's like the most as self-indulgent as you can get. It's literally about yourself writing a movie, and this kind of meta humor can be a bit like yes, we get it. I thought it was well executed though, and funny.
No, for sure. But I guess it kind of strikes a particularly irritating chord for me personally. Insofar as I really hate those. Whenever okay, to clarify, if someone like Fellini indulges himself, that's one thing. But I don't think Charlie Kaufman is anywhere near someone like Fellini. I mean, even like, okay, so the whole thing about like, I suck, I'm so pathetic, and now here's the thing about how self-aware I am that I suck and am pathetic. That really drives me up the wall. In the similar vein to things that are like, oh, I'm such a macho jackass. Because the thing about Raging Bull, for instance, is that the guy genuinely seems clueless. Or no, he seems to like be repressing his own knowledge of it, but he's not going around flaunting, oh, I suck, I'm such a macho idiot, and I, choose to alienate everyone, and he doesn't wallow in it. He has that one moment of explosion in the jail at the end, which is incredible. But Kaufman, I feel like almost. This is a weird comparison to make, but it reminds me of BoJack Horseman in a way, because he's really, really like seems to enjoy wallowing in his own pathetic existence. And for me, that bugs me because as much as he tells us, oh yeah, I should I should learn Chinese, which, okay, that is funny. I should learn Chinese because I suck and I'm so boring. I feel like he just kind of uses it as almost a form of chic. Like, this is hashtag relatable, I suck and nobody likes me. And fails to go beyond that. And, I don't know. It's not as incisive as I'd like because I feel like I get the sense that he almost enjoys it. Like he wears it as a badge of honor, the weirdest badge of honor. Now, again, there is a lot to appreciate. Like when I sympathize with that whole psychological thriller angle that he's complaining about early on, like with the two Nick Cages, where his brother has written like the serial killer thing and the double identity thing, and real Charlie Kaufman, not his made up brother, he goes, ugh, the serial killer cliche and the double identity cliche are the most overworn, nonsense cliches. You put them together, however he says it. And then his brother goes, Mom said it was psychologically taught. That made me laugh. But then when he's just, again, it's the kind of like, I have one idea or almost one idea, and I'm just going to restate that idea without diving into the shading of it. It's just, everything about me is
Well,
I have no problem with movies that choose to hang out in Loserville, but there's got to be more to it than this guy or I'm a loser. The end, and it feels like that's most of what I got from it.
well,
As much as Spike Jonze tries to quirk it up, and then like the action movie cliche at the end, I just thought that was it recalled Community in a way, but not in a good way. And like Community at its most smug and like I don't really like the mix of I'm both I really hate how pathetic I am, and I'm also so arrogant and smug about this other stuff. If as an exploration of a character, sure, but I feel like the movie itself takes on that kind of tone with the action thriller parody at the end. And compared to someone like Paul Verhoeven, who he made nothing but incisive satires when he was in Hollywood. RoboCop, Basic Instinct, Total Recall, Showgirls, my God. But he wasn't looking down at them. He was showing you this is why this stuff is entertaining. And that's what you have to understand, while still showing you why this could be, why this could be construed as something negative. All the exploitative natures of it. Whereas, adaptation for me with the whole, action thriller. Not that there aren't things to criticize. I mean, action movies can be the most, rocks for brains enterprises on the planet. But to just so smugly down at them and go, oh yeah, they suck. Ha, isn't it silly? Isn't it funny that we're making fun of this thing that sucks? And it kind of invites that smug connection from the audience, like, oh yeah, we can feel superior to those things. Like people who go out of their way to watch the worst movies ever made, so they feel superior to them. That's the feeling I get, and I don't know. I don't like Kaufman in general. Being John Malkovich, that works for me, and he is very creative. There's no doubt about that. But I didn't like. I'm thinking of ending things. I didn't like. What's it called?
Synecdoche.
No, I hated that one. Oh my god. I hated that one so much.
Do you not like Eternal Sunshine either?
I do like Eternal Sunshine. That's the thing.
That's his best one by far, I think.
That works.
In my opinion.
That really works for me. That I think is the most well put together, and that one goes beyond just I suck. The most interesting, and I love that story about Kate Winslet, like reading it and going like, "What is your idea of a woman?" I'm not saying any of this, so I feel like he needed more help like that, because that's another kind of sore spot for me. Movies that are aggressively male in this sense, and like this is not me saying that I don't love movies like I don't know Heat which is. But I mean, even a movie like The Thing, for example, which has an entirely male cast, doesn't necessarily feel aggressively male because of the vulnerability on display and how it's all breaking down. Something like most of Michael Mann's movies in general, his name is Mann. As much as I love them, I think a lot of them are great. It does strike me how the female presence in them is reduced to sort of like background stuff, which is a trope of many action movies. But this is kind of the other side of that coin. Whereas in Adaptation or Synecdoche, I don't even know how to say the word. I've only ever read it. Even I'm thinking of Ending Things, which has like a central female character. I guess that's based on a book, so that helps. Then it feels like that whole sort of like women are other. They are these crazy creatures from Mars, and I don't understand them. And I realize that the problems in these movies largely center around, a guy who doesn't understand them. But I also don't think it's a very good excuse. So in Eternal Sunshine, I think that being John Malkovich with Catherine Keener's character, I think that helps a lot too. But when he's not in full-on moping mode, because I've been depressed before, and even at the most depressed, it's never just everything sucks, the end. It's more other things exist and I can't really feel them. But instead, that's what I mean by Kaufman wallowing in it and being kind of smug. Like, I'm depressed. It comes off, especially in Synecdoche, New York. It's like I'm smug and I'm depressed, everything sucks, but I'm smug about it because I'm correct to be depressed. And here I am telling you about why you're wrong if you're not depressed. And and it feels like the whole movie's point is not that it doesn't have some poignancy. I don't think it's entirely so simple, obviously. It'd be like someone saying, oh, The Godfather is just about a bunch of mobsters doing mob stuff. Why do I care about that? Obviously, that's not the case. But I find that Kaufman's irritating qualities often override his likable qualities. And that's why, two of his most famous movies, by Spike Jonze. I don't know, Adaptation, it felt like Spike Jonze was kind of in and on the smugness with the whole, action movies sure are dumb, aren't they? And there's not really a lot of aesthetic craft in that movie either. I feel like it's purely a writer's film with and just illustrating a script is not what my idea of cinema is. Especially with a script like this.
I guess the cinematography is nothing special. I can't recall any particular shots, except at the end they have the time lapse of the flower. I thought that was quite nice. That was a cool way to end the movie.
It is, but
if I could, maybe could I defend Adaptation a bit? Because I feel like
let me just finish the thought. Sorry. I think with John Malkovich and then Michel Gondry on Eternal Sunshine, they kind of work against the text or especially John Malkovich kind of works against the text in a way. Which there's a long history of directors being given a script and then making something entirely different out of it. On the surface, something it goes back to the tradition of Douglas Sirk or a Hitchcock, of course. And lots of others, but Sirk is maybe the most famously subversive in what he was doing. So I think there's a little bit of that in John Malkovich, and Eternal Sunshine, I think, is both the best script and the most well realized by everyone involved. So for me that works, but feels like Kaufman somehow. I don't know if he actually. At this point, I'm speculating, so I'll stop. Go ahead.
Yeah. So, I'm with you on Synecdoche in New York, and I'm thinking of ending things, which I initially did like, but the more I thought about it, I soured on them more. I feel like they go too far. Especially Synecdoche in New York is just a crazy. It doesn't even make sense.
I didn't mind that. I like the idea. I just.
It's cool. It's creative. It's out there, but I agree with you. It's a little bit too far on the self-indulgence. I think Adaptation I like because I think if you're a creative person who's ever had writer's block, it's a very relatable movie where you just sort of, it's therapeutic to just start being honest and be like, just bare your soul. I hate myself, all this stuff. And you could view that as him wallowing in it and almost showing off how cool he is. But I think by the end of the movie, he does have an arc where he begins to appreciate his fictional brother that is writing the most generic action movie of all time. He's like, you know what? This actually is fun. And then the movie we're watching turns into that as a statement of maybe I don't have to be so pretentious all the time. Maybe an action movie is fun too. Or I don't know. Maybe that's how I viewed it. And I think by the end, his character also has a bit of self-reflection. He grows a bit.
It is possible that I was, that I'm not remembering it as fondly. Because I remember the first time I liked it, and then I kind of had your experience where the more I thought about it, I was like, actually, you know what? That really was. I know insufferable character doesn't mean bad movie necessarily, but I felt like the form of the movie was too. Again, think of something like Hot Fuzz, which is the most out and out parody of how stupid action movies can be, but it doesn't look down on it, and that sort of condescension is. I remember the moment where his brother gets shot in the swamp and they're having that moment, and even that felt like wink wink nudge nudge, and I don't know, maybe I'm being a little unfair, but I just remember this seems to course through all of his work for me. And I do want to read his novel though. I think in 2015 he published a novel. I think it's called Ant Kind, and I think that is probably where he's most, because he's clearly a writer first. And I think that the cinematic form, especially when there's someone else directing him, is kind of secondary. But he has a very literary mind. He has a great literary mind, So I think that's probably something he's probably better suited to. And I've heard it's very good, so I would like to read that.
I think this movie is where his pretentiousness feels most fitting to me, because it's like he's getting it all out of his system. It's like this movie wasn't going to work. He couldn't figure out how to adapt the flower thing. So he's just like, It's like he had to make this artistically. It's the only thing this movie could have been, was this weird self-reflective thing.
That's why I liked it in Eternal Sunshine, because in Eternal Sunshine, that whole like Kaufman character is challenged the most. And it feels like in the rest he just kind of like wanders around, not being like, someone goes, "Oh yeah, you're a weirdo, Charlie," but in Eternal Sunshine he's actually confronted with it, and it's also the most emotional by far. So I think that was really something special, and the rest is just, it doesn't do it for me.
Fair enough. Eternal Sunshine is probably the best because it was more of a collaborative effort from a lot of people. It sounds like even Kate Winslet weighing in on her character and everything.
No, Kate Winslet is excellent. I saw this movie with Kate Winslet recently, in the bedroom. That was fantastic. She does some really, really good stuff.
For sure. We move on from Adaptation. We've talked about it enough. I see where you're coming from,
Yeah.
but I do. Maybe 5 is too much. I don't know, but it resonated with me a lot. I felt
whatever I say. Don't let me make you feel bad about your 5 stars, because that's the worst. Like, it's good if someone says something that makes you think about it, because I've also had movies that are 5 stars before, and then I read something and I was like, huh, and I didn't like immediately go to like drop it down to 2, but at the same time I was like, you know what, that is worth thinking about. Or I've read something and I was like, huh, is that worth thinking about? And then I was like, no, I think that person's wrong. So
yeah, fair enough.
Kiki's Delivery Service is an excellent choice, by the way. What a movie.
Yeah, I've not viewed it in a long time. It's kind of an old one, an old rating, but it's one of the best feel-good movies ever made. It's so.
I saw it for the first time last year. My ex showed it to me because it's her favorite movie. It was magical stuff.
Yeah, this and like Castle in the Sky, and so that era of Ghibli's delightful stuff.
I
Have you
still
seen
have some
Castle in the
Ghiblis to
Sky?
get to, yeah. I've seen Howl's Moving Castle. I don't think I've seen. No, Castle in the Sky is Laputa, right? No, I haven't seen that one.
Laputa.
Yeah. No, I've only seen Howl's Moving Castle, which I also enjoyed. I mean, it's really hard to go wrong with Ghibli.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't crazy about The Boy and the Heron, to be honest. I watched that a few months ago.
I still haven't seen that one. My ex told me she liked it, but she also told me she had some reservations. But I also have some, film friends who were like, "Oh yeah, it's one of the best things he ever did." So I will get to it eventually. Okay. What else? Well, that's a good choice. I'm glad to see Akira and Eraserhead up there at 5. Seventh Seal, of course. Bergman is pretty untouchable for me. I like King of Comedy at 5. That's an underrated. That's becoming like this sort of with Scorsese. Then he's got these kind of like sleeper picks that are now becoming more popular. King of Comedy is one, especially because it was a big influence on Joker. Well, influence, that's being generous. And After Hours is the other one that people are really going, "Oh no, this is my favorite Scorsese movie." But no, I like King of Comedy a lot. It's
it's great. You guys got to watch it if you haven't. Really good.
It could be said this movie invented the cringe comedy genre. It's so painful to watch. Like, you think The Office is bad about like cringing at the characters? This will make you want to jump out of your skin.
Actually, I can't remember if I watched this first or Joker first. I think I watched this first.
Really?
I think
I watched Joker first. Yeah. But then again, I wasn't much of a cinephile at the time. So, but yeah, for everyone to see Joker is just, what if you took Taxi Driver and King of Comedy and made him the Joker and made him have to face Batman? That's...
Yeah, this movie is about this weird aspiring comic who is obsessed with a like a Jimmy Fallon type late night host.
Yeah,
just
Jerry Lewis.
He reckons the only thing he needs to propel his career is appear on the Jerry Lewis show. And he goes to great lengths to do so. It's very uncomfortable to watch and like darkly funny. Absolutely recommend it.
Yeah, he's very, very, very socially awkward. There's an unusual crime plot to it, which you wouldn't expect, because you're like, oh, comic, what's he gonna do? And it's not a Joker kind of thing where he shoots guys on the subway. It's very, very far away from that. But the whole time, it is funny. It's just you got to get through the pain to get there. But yeah, so yeah, I like King of Comedy. That's did I see? Is it on Disney Plus? Was that showing on the streamers? Oh my god,
Disney Plus Australia. Yeah, I don't know if it's in US, but hey,
yeah,
that's a good one for the children. Good one for the children.
Yeah, Disney Plus has The French Connection, which is a bizarre movie to put on. I mean, they censored out, that one part, but I love Eraserhead there, of course, and Chunking Express, which I understand is your latest.
Yeah, this is my most recent 5. I hadn't given anything 5 since Akira, but I initially gave this 4.5, and I thought about it. This is like a thinker, I think. I thought about it for a couple weeks, and I was like, you know what? I think it's a 5. Even though it's a very unique movie. It's unlike anything I've ever seen before. Because it doesn't really have a satisfying plot end, but it feels so authentic, and the cinematography was some of the best I've ever seen. I remember so many of the shots.
Oh no, I understand. It's the first time you see Wong Kar-wai, you're like, whoa, you can do that? Oh my god!
It makes me want to go to Hong Kong. I feel like he makes Hong Kong look so cool.
I had the exact same thing, but that's the tragic thing about his '90s movies. That Hong Kong is gone. Like it's pre-handover. And I saw a double bill of Chunking Express and Fallen Angels in December here. And the guy who was introducing it, he was like, one of the most interesting things about this, other than the obvious joys of it, is that they are a time capsule of a Hong Kong that does not exist anymore, because this was pre-handover. And it's obviously you have the characters with their. It's beautiful because you can see the characters for what they are. And then you can also see them as these sort of symbols of pre-handover anxiety. And Chunky, it is really magical. How sick are you of California Dreamin'?
Oh, I had it in my head for sure. They played that song California Dreamin' like 100 times in this movie.
It's so great, yeah. I don't know how they got the rights to play it so many times, what kind of deal they struck, but oh my god. Yeah, that's beautiful. So, so chunking is. I like that you specified it doesn't really have a satisfying plot, because I have tried to explain to so many people, plot is the least interesting thing about movies.
Yeah.
Like, I don't care how many plot twists. Okay, it can be fun, right?
It depends, I guess, but like this is just is like a painting or something. It's someone expressing an emotion.
Exactly. That to me is what sticks with me way more than the mechanics of a plot. Like, it might be cool to make your way through the maze of a plot the first time. Like, okay, I'll give you a great example. I just last night I watched Inherent Vice by Paul Thomas Anderson, which is based on a great book by Thomas Pynchon. I'm currently reading V by him, and it's frustrating because it is like consciously difficult to parse. It's like The Big Lebowski. I remember the first time I saw The Big Lebowski, I was like, well, I can follow this plot, no problem. And every time I've gone back to it, I'm like, this is so confusing. I can barely keep up. And Inherent Vice is like if you took The Big Lebowski, which is obviously in the tradition of those noirs like The Big Sleep, which are very self-consciously confusing, so much so that like even their authors didn't know what was going on half the time. And it's like, well, the plot itself, I'm becoming more confused with each passing word, but that's not really what's important about this. If a coherent plot, in fact, part of the whole feeling of the movie is that feeling of incoherence, kind of like sputtering your way through the mystery of this particular incident, this particular time, life itself, whatever the specifics. So obviously chunking is not confusing, but the lack of emphasis on like a clear plot, like, oh, we have to go here and get the thing before the other guy finds us, nothing like that. And it's very slice of life almost in that way. And it really, Wong Kar-wai is that guy for like people getting into movies. I mean, I had like it was like a getting hit by lightning when I saw it. It was like, well, the story is great and charming and everything, but the way he films it is bringing out these like levels of human connection I did not know were possible. What is and then you realize the power of cinema and all that. So, chunking.
It really feels like it's expressing something deep inside this guy. Like even the whole, like there's a sense of humor to it. Where there's the guy looking at his apartment, yeah. There's like the towel dripping, and he's like, "Why are you crying?" or something. Talking to all these inanimate objects. His soap, he's like, "You've lost weight" or something. Like it's these funny little.
I know. There's the moment at the beginning where he's at the stand and he's using the phone and he's calling like every girlfriend he's ever had, and it's like, what do you mean you're married? What do you mean it's been 5 years?
That was great. And then he just leaves the phone hanging, and that was a beautiful shot. He just leaves it hanging. And then the store owner comes and peeks out.
Oh, it's yeah. So like that's the whole like it's very light and it's fun, but there is a profound sense of like longing and yearning and loss in it. That is why it's so magical. It's really incredible stuff. So yeah, I love Chunking, but the funniest thing to me is that it's not his best movie. He had another movie like during that period when he was making Chunking, and he had an idea for a third story that would be part of Chunking, and then he decided to make it its own movie, and that became Fallen Angels. And for a long time, that was my favorite Wong Kar-wai movie because Chunking is usually during the day, and Fallen Angels is almost exclusively at night. And this is what really like I really like Chungking, but the level of connection I felt the first time I was watching Fallen Angels, I was like, this guy gets it on a level I didn't know was possible. How is it that he was like inside my head like this? This movie from 1995 in Hong Kong. I've never been further east than the Moscow airport. So it, it's really, really incredible stuff. And Fallen Angels has this sort of youthful exuberance to it. And he's got a lot of great movies. Even before Chungking, Days of Being Wild is really, really gorgeous. And he's got a bunch of other stuff. But to me, the best one has become, as I've aged, In the Mood for Love, which at first I didn't like it because I was like, where's my Chungking Fallen Angels fun? It's not like zipping around, doesn't have that kind of exuberance. So it is kind of a more, I'm sorry to say it like this, but mature thing. Not mature as in the film is better for it, but it's from a different perspective. The characters are a little older. They're around like 30, a little older, and they're married. As opposed to the mid-20s of Chunking and Fallen Angels, where they're just like, oh, what is my life? I want to go to McDonald's at 3 a.m. Oh, I don't have any sense of direction, which of course is very relatable. But In the Mood for Love is the most. So I remember I've mentioned my ex at a few points because a lot of this movie stuff is related. And I took her to the Chungking Fallen Angels double bill, and she loved Chungking. She was like, Fallen Angels, I liked it, but Chungking was amazing. Anyway, after we broke up, she was still living with me for a few weeks while she looked for a place. And right before she moved, we watched In the Mood for Love together. It might have been the stupidest thing I've ever done in my life.
Uh,
No, I'm glad. I'm glad I did because I'd only seen it like 4 years ago when I was wanting as much Wong Kar-wai as possible, and I was like, "Well, it's okay. Yeah, it looks incredible. It's the most beautiful use of the color red ever in cinema history. Yeah, yeah, yeah." But it's just not hitting me in the way these others are. And I guess it took a few years, but like it stuck with me. That's the thing. Chunking is great while you're watching it, and then it sticks with you. So does Fallen Angel. So do pretty much all of his things. But In the Mood for Love really stuck with me. I won't spoil it, but basically, the setup is that there's these two neighbors, and they're both married, and they realize that their spouses are cheating on them with each other. And then they're super bummed out about this. So, they're lonely. So they start hanging out together and they're like, I wonder what it was like, when my wife and your husband got together. I wonder how that happened, And then, I mean, talk about repressing your feelings. Jesus Christ. And, the pang of lost love and all this other unbelievable. So, yeah, I have to stop myself there. I'm getting emotional thinking about it. But yes, In the Mood for Love for me is one of the great, great, great works of cinema. And yeah, that's the best one. But while you're in that Chungking headspace, you got to see Fallen Angels because it's its twin basically. It was like right after Chungking, it's like, hey, let's do that again, but at night. And
that sounds
it's
perfect.
magical stuff.
I've got to watch more of his
Yeah.
movies. This is my first one. I've seen it recently. I loved it.
It's so good. No, there's nothing like getting into Wong Kar-wai. He is really singular. I mean, okay, he has his influences, right? I remember I watched these movies from the Taiwanese New Wave from Ho Xiao-hsien. I'm so sorry, I can't pronounce it. But like he made these movies in the late 80s, early 90s, which you could tell were a big influence on Wong Kar-wai. But Wong Kar-wai is amazing. He's like Scorsese or Claire Denis or whatever other great director you can think of, or Spike Lee or whoever, where you can theoretically no matter how underground you get, you can see the influences for sure, but they still make it their own. Like with Raging Bull, I know it's influenced by the setup and Rocco and his brothers. I've seen them. I'm like, oh, that's where this, but he still makes it his own. I mean, Scorsese, especially, he cites movies all the time. But even though, like in that moment in Taxi Driver, where they're outside the apartment and he sees the woman in the window, and I'm like, yeah, I know this is Hitchcock, this is a Fritz Lang's film, Woman in the Window, but it's still made entirely his own. And Wong Kar-wai is like that. There really is. There are a lot of rip-off Wong Kar-wai artists out there, and they're pretty good. Like there's a movie called, this is a little harsh to call it a rip-off. Inspired is more like it, but Suzhou River. A Chinese film by, oh my god, what's his name? Lu something. Let me look it up. But I really enjoyed it, Suzhou River. But you could tell it's made by a young guy who really loved Wong Kar-wai. Made by Lu Ye, yeah.
I'll have
So
to check
there's
that
lots
out.
of
Sounds cool.
no, it's very good for sure.
'Cause that's
It's just
Suzhou River. That must be in Jiangsu, which I've spent some time in. Maybe I could relate to it.
really. Yeah,
Yeah.
no, it's very good. I'd even like to see it again. But yeah, it's, you can tell that there's lots of there's another movie by a guy named Fruit Chan who's called Made in Hong Kong. I think it's from 1997, and you're like, the Wong Kar-wai is all over this.
You seen
Um,
Infernal Affairs, the movie that The Departed adapted?
no, I haven't, but I want to. It's, my watch list is embarrassingly
Oh, yeah.
long. Like put it this way, I just finally watched Inherent Vice tonight. I've had the DVD for years.
I've got heaps
Or
of stuff on
last
my
night,
watch
sorry.
list too. I mean, Eraserhead is still the only Lynch thing I've ever seen. I still got to watch. Even I loved it so much, and I'm like,
dude.
there's 100% chance I'd love like all these other movies. But
If you liked Eraserhead, there's so much else you'd like. The obvious choice is a Japanese movie called Tetsuo the Iron Man, which
oh, you've
is
recommended
like,
me that before. Yeah, that's on my watch list literally.
it's psychotic. It's like Eraserhead if it was, I don't know. I've never done drugs in my life, so I don't know what drug to compare it to. Bath salts, maybe, from what I know. It's psychotic. But yeah, but Eraserhead really is special. There's also a Guy Madden movie that I saw recently, Pride of Canada. It's called Tales from the Gimli Hospital, which also has a very, very strong Eraserhead feel to it. Eraserhead plus Luis Buñuel, and Lynch himself was really influenced by Lynch himself was influenced by Buñuel. So yeah, Chungking, Wong Kar-wai, great stuff.
Yeah, it's probably the best movie I've seen about like relationships and those feelings since Eternal Sunshine. Nothing else
Just wait till you
has
get
really
to the
struck a
others.
chord. Yeah.
Uh,
It feels so authentic,
Okay.
and it feels like, yeah. Sometimes you just see such a good work of art that it makes you. It's stuck
I
with
know
me.
it's
I'm
the
still
kind of thing
thinking
that
about it,
inspires you
honestly.
to live. Yeah, I know.
And
That's Wong Kar-wai himself. There's this very well-known quote of his. He's like, there are movies that you watch them and they're like, okay, but then they stick with you and they have this kind of like lingering aftertaste. And he makes movies with this sort of aftertaste, and that's exactly the feeling. Like, you go around like in a daze for like weeks after, like, oh my god, that was the most incredible thing I've ever seen in my life.
everything I've given 5 stars here is probably something that stood out to me in that way that like stuck with me for some reason.
No,
This was
I
one of
I
them.
100%
And
100% agree.
yeah, that hasn't
It's
happened for me since Akira, which felt special as well.
Akira is real. Oh, of course. You know who else loves Chungking Express is Tarantino. As irritating as I find Tarantino, I really like how he went to bat and he basically told everyone, like, you got to see this movie from Hong Kong. You got to see Chungking Express, and helped it find the audience. Like, one of the reasons Chungking is like so popular now is largely because of Tarantino helping make it
It
popular.
was the same
so.
with Bong Joon-ho. Didn't he promote Bong Joon-ho a lot?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Uh,
Because Memories of Murder is incredible. Memories of Murder is like, for anyone who's familiar with David Fincher and his serial killer fetish. I do like Zodiac, to be fair, but Memories of Murder is Zodiac but better, years before Zodiac. It's a really
yeah, it's
astonishing.
fantastic. I gave it 4.5. I don't know if you'd give it 5. I could
I
bump
would
it up
also
to
give it
5.
in that 4.5 range. The thing is that, like, I've
Here it
started.
is.
I've seen so many movies at this point that, especially this year, I've become like very harsh with my rating system. So like Inherent Vice last night, I watched it. I really, really enjoyed it. I gave it 3 stars because to me, 3 stars is like really good. You know, like because if everything is like I used to see this all the time. Like Letterboxd, people would give something 4 stars and they'd be like, "Yeah, I liked it. I didn't love it. It was okay." And I'm like, what is this system? And I mentioned this in a recent video of
There is
mine. And
rating
someone said,
inflation.
yeah, well, that too, but they're also probably thinking of it in terms of the U.S. grading system, where if you get an 80, that's a B minus, and that's already like okay, well, it could have been better. And I don't really think of it that way. And part of it is like I follow some real film snobs, which I mean, even if they're insufferable about their opinions or whatever, they have good taste. I and so if I see one guy in particular and he's given something 3 stars, I'm like, this is going to be good. If I see this guy give something 4.5, I'm like, this is going to knock my socks off. But that's because he's seen like literally, I think it's like 12,000 movies, and he's given like
Hmm.
45 stars. And I know some people would say, oh, snobbery, whatever. And I personally don't think I would be that intense about it, but I understand you really want that rating to mean something. And if you look at a bunch of movies that people like, and everything is fives and 4.5s, and as soon as the 4 stars come around, it's like, well, what is this for? So to me, my personal scale, because I'm going to give you mine, and you can go through and rip on mine, just so it's fair.
Oh, okay.
Um, uh,
Sure.
because like so if I gave something a 3, like I enjoyed it a lot. Or like one of my favorite movies from this year that I've seen is the Coen Brothers is A Serious Man. I really love that one. Talk about thinking about it a lot. It's so so funny. And I gave that. I think I would bump it up to 3.5 now. But that's what I mean. If I'm bumping it up to 3.5, that means it really stuck with me. So 3.5, 4, 4.5. It's really good. Like I think maybe my favorite new discovery of this year, um, either Herzog's Nosferatu or Bogdanovich's Paper Moon. Like those are like 4.5, 4 territory, and those were insanely good. So yeah, I also haven't given something an immediate 5 stars in a very, very, very long time. I try not to in general. Like 2 years ago, I gave Bergman's Face to Face an immediate 5. That was incredible. And then last year, I think Spirit of the Beehive, I waited like a couple days before I bumped it up because it was just so incredible. But like that's what I mean. Like for me, it should be an exception. So yeah, Memories of Murder is definitely a 4, maybe 4.5 star movie. So yeah, I see you have Uncut Gems as 4.5 too, which is a great choice. Incredible, incredible stuff.
Yeah, I think I agree with you. You got to have some consistency with your ratings. I might give like I think my most common rating is 4 stars. It's like I
Hmm.
liked it. I probably should go through my 4 stars and like double check them all. That's what I do usually. There's always recency bias, so sometimes I'll give something 4.5, and then I'm like, I think about it and bring it lower
Yeah,
upon
it's good to
reflection
have
later.
some distance, but at the same time, you don't want to be too caught up in the numbers stuff. Like
Yeah,
I tried because otherwise you can spend forever. So for me, I just basically go, like, is there any doubt in my mind that this should be the higher rating? And if there is, I just go down to the lower one because if it sticks with me and I'm like, you know what, Chunky Express actually is 5 stars or whatever, then I can always go back. But I prefer to undershoot because it's less about the number and more about what you take away from it. And I think we can get a little obsessed with numbers, especially nowadays. So I try to keep it light in that regard.
I have got some here that are slightly hot takes. I do not think
Uh,
people rate
not
Sound of
the
Metal as high
thing.
as I do usually. Have you seen Sound of Metal?
I saw it when it came out. I like it. I think it's for me. This is an example of like a very good 3 star movie.
That's
I
how
know,
I
like
think
for
most
most people,
people see it, but
yeah.
it connected
Well,
with me a lot.
I mean my 3 stars. So I think for most other people that would be like 3.5, 4. Um, but I did think it was very good. I really liked it. Yeah, I play drums. I've blasted my ears out with music more times than I can count, and somehow my hearing is still very good. But now I'm very conscious of it. And this movie, was like, dude, you better watch out.
Yeah, I just love like the concept of like this guy's whole life is music, and he goes deaf, and then what? Then what do you do? It's this very
Yeah.
real thing. Like that happens. It could happen to you.
It has a
And
great ending for sure.
and the ending is fantastic. Yeah. Like I guess spoilers. Like the whole movie is just grappling with it. He gets the hearing aid, and it's not. It doesn't work how he expects it to. And then at the end, he turns off the hearing aid and accepts being deaf, and he accepts that he can move on.
Yeah, even if you know what happens, then it doesn't ruin the experience.
Yeah, for sure.
It's not like, I don't know, Jesus Christ. Well, okay, I think if knowing what happens ruins the experience, then it's not a good movie in general, or a good movie in the sense of that first time experience. Because let's just use the most famous example ever. Luke, I'm your father, right? Even when you go back and watch Empire Strikes Back, knowing it, then you see it gives you a new appreciation for it, and it doesn't just cheapen the experience, as opposed to, I don't know, The Prestige or something. God, I hate The Prestige.
You hate I like The Prestige.
I hate The Prestige. I'm
fun.
very mixed on Nolan in general, but I hated that one. And to me, like, I wouldn't want to revisit it because I feel like knowing everything that happens does cheapen that experience. And
you're probably right. It is about the twist, I guess. But I thought it was cool.
I think that's Nolan at his worst. I think Nolan has a lot of great about him, but he also has a lot that gets in his way. And The Prestige is just him at his unabashed worst. And yeah, I like when Nolan indulges in his other, like that thing where you can't hear the dialogue in Nolan's movies. I love that. I hope he does that for the rest of his career. But the plot twist stuff, I don't like.
What did you think of Oppenheimer?
I liked it. I think it's probably his best.
I liked it too.
It was almost experimental in a way, and I hesitate to use that word because I've watched a lot of experimental movies, and I know that to call like the biggest blockbuster on the planet experimental when there are people making real experimental movies can sound strange. And so I'm not saying it's Stan Brakhage or anything, but I'm saying for what it is, which is
I think it's impressive because it's hard to make a movie about like a scientist writing on chalkboards and stuff exciting. Like the pacing and editing of it really was, I thought, impressive.
That was what was interesting to me because I felt like, okay, this is a 3.5 hour biopic, and there's no action scenes, and I think, okay, let me put it this way. Denis Villeneuve makes Blade Runner 2049. It's R-rated. It's got all his signature forms of violence, swearing, all that stuff, right? So R rating, and it flops. So then when Dune came out, I love the Dune movies, by the way, but you can tell that they were like, dude, we are not doing Blade Runner again. This is going to get a PG-13 rating. I don't know what the ratings are outside of the US. I mean, I don't even know what the Czech rating system is. I think it's like 15 or whatever. But like in the States, R is like 17 and below. Or if you're under 17, you need a parent or guardian there with you. And that obviously limits ticket sales. It's why something like if there's an R-rated superhero movie, it's a big deal because like, a superhero movie that is going to make less because of how kids can't go see it without their parents there or whatever, or you're too young to see certain things. So yeah, with Blade Runner, it was R, and with Dune, they knocked it down to PG-13, which means it's you can take kids to see it with much more easily. I forget exactly how it works. You can look it up, but that's the basic idea. So, and there's no F-bombs in Dune. The violence is not as intense, although he pushes it for sure as much as he does because he's great. But you can tell. And with Oppenheimer, I got that feeling that like as soon as it started, I was like, no scene lasts longer than a few seconds. There's music playing under everything. And my first instinct was, okay, well, this is partially like a marketing thing because 3-hour biopic about a scientist, you cannot let the audience get bored for a second. I don't mean to make it sound like a sort of TikTok thing, but like if you want people to be engaged for this kind of material, then you just have to go bam, bam, bam. And then I thought about it from Nolan's, from an artistic lens, and I was thinking Nolan is not really interested in his characters a lot of the times. He's more of a mechanics kind of guy. Like go back to Memento and think about like it's not really the character that's interesting him so much as the logistical challenge of a noir in going backwards with a character who has memory loss. It's like he likes his puzzle boxes, or like Inception or whatever. Inception is a movie about dreaming that has very little to do with the actual nature of dreams. It's about as far from Lynch as anything. It's more about an action movie where the gimmick is, oh, it's partially dreaming. It has some very cool effects and everything, but as far as cinema as dream state as has been its calling in the arts for so long, it's not very much like that at all. So I thought it was really interesting for the biopic format, because the biopic is a terrible format. There are interesting biopics, but generally they're not made in Hollywood. Like Paul Schrader's Mishima, from which I saw in a theater this year, which is fantastic.
Raging Bull.
But Raging Bull is a biopic for sure. Yeah, there's some good ones, but
I hate like the pop biopics, like what was the
Rhapsody,
Freddie Mercury?
Stuff like that. Excruciating. So no, those biopics are the worst. So I thought this was kind of like an almost experimental rebuttal to the biopic, where I felt like I knew less about Oppenheimer when the movie ended. Like it so denies you any sort of like real knowledge of him. I don't know. It's a strange kind of thing to put your finger on, but that kind of feeling, like it felt like a genuine film as opposed to a condensed, historically inaccurate Wikipedia article, as the Bohemian Rhapsodies of the world do. So I like that it kind of almost spit in the face of like, you want to know about this guy? Well, I'm giving you the thriller first and the facts of his life second. It's like this supercharged anticipation of the most important thing that ever happened, as Matt Damon's character puts it. And it's just constantly moving forward until that bomb goes off. And I appreciated also how like the big event isn't even, the bomb being dropped in the war. It's just a test to see if it works, and how it's like, oh my God, what have we done? So I appreciated, it felt like Nolan's most human movie for sure. With the emphasis on, it's less about the puzzle box now and more about the real world impact. I mean, you still see his fascination for process and science, but you don't get stuck in the minutia. You don't get stuck in the minutia of it as much as being weighed down by the human impact of it all. And I really liked some of those choices, like when he's being questioned by the committee, and like it's getting that like it looks like the guy who's questioning him and yelling at him is like getting bleached by nuclear fire. And then there's that moment where he's like, "Oh, I bet the Japanese didn't care for that. The Japanese didn't care for that bomb being dropped on them." And then like the way it like tremors in there and shakes. I thought that was a great moment too. So while I'm not 100% on board with the whole Nolan thing in general, I did think it was his most complete, his best film overall. So
interesting.
Yeah. Okay, do you want me to give you my letterbox so you can take some shots in return? Because I feel a little bad
now. Sure. But
right,
first, why don't I show you like my 4 stars, just to give an idea, because I do have a lot of 4 stars and some of them are outdated. It's like here, I got Prestige at 4.5, which you clearly disagree with. I just thought it was cool. I literally rated that after I watched it, I think. But
outrageous. Okay.
Some people do not like Baby Driver. I thought it was very fun.
I enjoyed Baby Driver, but
4.5 might be too high. Now that I think about it.
Look, when I first saw Baby Driver, it was a 5-star movie for me. But
that's it. Yeah, when you first watch it, it's awesome.
It's just that I think it's overblown. Like now that I sort of see the strings, like I feel like it's bloated by Edgar, like the requisite, oh, my parents died and now I'm a loner. And I'm like, I have no problem with this kind of recycled tropes or anything like that. I mean, one of my favorite movies is Drive with Gosling, obviously, and that is a story that could have been set in the 40s, so it's not about that. It's about the treatment of it, and I feel like Edgar Wright's treatment of it is a little too poppy, a little too light. because I feel like in Baby Driver, he's most interested in the conceit is great. Everything being set to music, I love that. It's just I feel like it's overlong. It's like almost 2 hours, right?
You're
It
kind
also
of right.
commits the
Like
sin
we're
of
talking about Wong Kar-wai earlier, where he's not concerned with plot, the tropes or anything. It's like
and I
maybe
feel like
this
Edgar
movie would
Wright
have been
is
better if it just leaned more into the vibe he wanted to go for, like the style
exactly.
of.
This is a movie that needed less plot.
You
Or
think you're
even look
damn
at
right, yeah.
Drive. Because this basically has the plot of Drive, the getaway driver thing. Cool, bare bones. Drive is 97 minutes. The credits roll, or no, Drive is 100 minutes, and credits roll at minute 97. Yeah, I've seen it that many times. I know. Whereas Baby Driver, is so wrapped up in the plot. I think it's just got too much going on. And not in like Akira has too much going on in the good overstimulating way. Baby Driver's too much going on in the kind of cluttering, getting in its own way sort of way. There's a lot to love, but I feel like Edgar Wright has really become more of a set piece director, which okay, he's extraordinary at it. But the stuff surrounding it, like I feel like he's kind of gotten soft. And look, he used to be my favorite director, so I don't take any pleasure in saying this. I think his Cornetto films are still incredible. They're the most, they're the most creative. They're the most silly, and they're the most grounded. Funnily enough, and with Baby Driver and Last Night in Soho, which I also loved when I first saw it, but have really soured on. I feel like he's kind of gotten soft in the Sean, Hot Fuzz, World's End, they all had kind of like a brutality to them that I think is really like, okay, Baby Driver, that moment where he drives and Jamie Foxx gets, speared in the chest by the thing, that was like, whoa, where has this Edgar Wright been the whole movie? But I feel like as he's gotten more Hollywood, sorry to put it like that, then he has gotten, more people. I don't know if it's him or people telling him, hey, you can't do whatever, but it feels like he's less indulgent. I don't expect him to make splatter movies into his 50s, but I feel like he's still working in those kinds of genres and has kind of softened on them and doesn't have and again, compare him to Refn, who's doing Drive or Neon Demon, which could anticipate Last Night in Soho, and he's got a real bite to him for all his flaws, whereas Edgar Wright does. I think he's. I don't know. Maybe he needs the influence of Simon Pegg for the writing of those Cornetto movies, which, again, I saw them in a theater this year, finally, all three in a row, and they were fantastic, great as ever. But I feel like even Scott Pilgrim, which I enjoyed, very silly, very funny, but it just runs out of steam in that second half or in the last act, and I'm just like, there's something about Edgar Wright outside the Cornetto trilogy that just has me lacking. That has me feeling like he's lacking. So, but again, there's so much to love about Baby Driver. It commits the sin of kind of peaking in its opening scene, which is a shame. You don't want that. I mean, it's an incredible opening scene, but for some reason, it feels like they ran out of budget at the end. Why does that movie not end with a car chase?
The ending was really lackluster. It was.
Edgar Wright seems to really struggle with his endings. No, the Cornettos are good, but Scott Pilgrim, bad ending.
Hot
Baby
Fuzz
Driver,
is on another
bad
level
ending.
for sure. Hot Fuzz is his best in my opinion.
Hot Fuzz is my comfort movie. I've seen it 17 times. I could watch it right now, and I'd have a smile on my face in 2 seconds. Maybe that's what I need. I've been going through it lately. Maybe I just need to rewatch Hot Fuzz again. But no, really, it's fantastic. I love the Cornetto so much, but I really think they ran out of budget, because this is his most expensive movie, I think. But if not, in literal budget in terms of scope with all the car chases and everything. I mean, you've got a helicopter flying over you've got a helicopter shot of a helicopter, so that's a lot of budget right there. Something I'm very, very conscious of right now with mine. So I feel like they ran out of money, and that's why there's no car chase at the end with the John Hamm confrontation. But look, so much to like. The set, the tequila set piece in the middle is really good. I don't know, and I have a thing for Isa Gonzalez, so she's very much my type. So that I forgive a lot of flaws when she's on screen, but
there's fun scenes. I like the scene with John Hamm in the diner. Is the tension there? It's
Yeah,
cool.
it's good stuff. Yeah, like it's very fun. It's very breezy. It's a good time. Like if someone said, "Hey, you want to watch Baby Driver?" I'm not going to say no. I don't want to watch that at all. I'd have a good time. It just lingers with you less than the Cornettos.
I
Whereas
think
even at their silliest, you know,
yeah, I'm not crazy about John Bernthal. I feel like he's the same character in everything he's ever done. What do you
I don't
think?
mind that necessarily. And his role in this is pretty minor.
Yeah, it's weird because he's this cynical character. He doesn't like the Baby Driver, and then Jamie Foxx comes in and he does the exact same thing. I was
Yeah,
confused. Why did
I
they?
don't know.
It was slightly inelegant. I don't know.
That might have just been a market, like a thing, like, hey, you need another star in this. Oh, well, what if we get this guy and we split one character into two? Like, I realize this is very inside
probably
baseball
true.
kind of talk, but like I'm literally dealing with this kind of stuff right now, trying to make my movie.
The business side of things.
And it's like literally like all that like backstage stuff. Is like I cannot tell you how accurate it is. It's honestly, I was like, you know what happened to me recently? Someone was like, "Hey, can you give your movie a happy ending?" And I was like, "You did not just say that to me. I cannot believe this is a real thing."
That might be
Like,
why
at
this
my
has
budget
all
level, I
the
mean.
tropey plot stuff in it. Is maybe the higher ups were like, you got to put in a plot that people can relate to. Otherwise,
They're barely higher. Like with my budget level, my God, I was like, well, okay, the budget is, I'm taking out a loan from the bank for it, but at least that means I get creative control, right? And then someone tells me, so like we want the audience to like this, so can we like leave them feeling good with a happy ending? And I was like, first of all, it's not a sad ending; it's ambiguous. Sorry for giving it away, I guess, but okay, it's a happy ending, and then there's still a few seconds left. Ish. I don't see. I can't even like boil it down to a description. I've been fighting for it, but I was like, I cannot believe this is still happening. What happened to just get the budget and do what you want?
I like the stories of
complaining,
like
but,
Bong Joon-ho making stuff up for the executive so he can keep scenes in his movie. Have you heard about him doing that? It's pretty funny.
I haven't actually. Please tell me about that. By the way, I'm joking about this like now because it's a little frustrating. But the people I work with are great. That's why I'm working with them.
Oh yeah.
I was just a little gobsmacked. I was like, I heard about this happening to Lynch, but he was working in Hollywood.
I think.
But yeah, what were the Bong Joon-ho stories?
There was actually only one I've heard, but it makes it sound like he does it a lot. In Snowpiercer, there's a scene where a guy like slices open a fish and the guts fall out. And I think the higher ups were like, can we just cut this scene? It's not necessary. Like, it doesn't add anything. It doesn't progress the plot. And he made up this story about how like his father's a fisherman, and this is like very symbolic to him. It was complete garbage, and just so he could keep, because he thought it was a cool scene. It added, like, he just wanted the scene in.
No, I've heard that too. I've heard it doesn't advance the story, and that first of all, my feelings on plot. But second of all, I was like, it does advance the story. The emotion is the story, so I've gotten into arguments like that. But I never thought to make up or someone else was like, oh, why was it in there? Oh, it's inspired by something that really happened. And so, but I didn't make that up. I'm like, maybe I should. What an idea.
Some new tech for you. Just make some stuff up. Pull on the heartstrings. My father was a fisherman.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's like, I think as movies have progressed as a medium, you get more of that, where like you got to appeal to the masses. When you look back at like, have you ever seen Disney's Pinocchio?
The original, yeah, when I was a kid.
It's got like no cohesive plot whatsoever. There's parts that are just like them flexing their animation skills, and like parts that are completely horrifying.
Exactly.
And it's just like a
cares.
complete vibes. It's just they didn't really know it was made in 1940, I think. No one knew what they're doing, but I think it stands out as a Disney movie because these days Disney movies are the safest, most boring things of all time. But you look at Pinocchio, it's like, geez.
I even keep saying, like, what do audiences complain about the most? Nothing is original anymore. It's all the same. So let's do something original. And what do people complain about? The Hollywood happy ending. So yeah, I think a lot of times, this is going to sound arrogant, I'm sorry, but a lot of times the audience doesn't know what they want. They think they know what they want. They're like, oh, I want something original. And then they see something original. Well, that was weird. Give me the same thing over and over. And it can be contradictory and they don't know what they want. But that's why you need, the director to say, this is how it's going to be. And I think they'll like it because this is my job to understand, what's going to make the movie good. And what makes the movie good is what makes people like it. Now, I understand there's a limit. you could show Stalker to your average Hollywood audience, and they'd be like, "That was the dumbest thing I've ever seen in my life. What is this pretentious Russian sci-fi nonsense?" But that doesn't mean most movies are not like Stalker, you know. So yeah, I've been having a lot of discussions like this lately, as you can see, and I'm oversimplifying it a little bit. That's the basic gist. So yeah, I think Edgar Wright has watered himself down post Cornetto.
You're probably right.
Yeah.
I think I also have Hot Fuzz 4.5, and they should probably not be at the same rating. Hot Fuzz is clearly a cut above.
I love Hot Fuzz so much.
You ever seen Muriel's Wedding? I watched that recently. Australian movie.
I haven't. I've only seen a few Australian movies, but Wake and Fright is my favorite for sure.
I gotta watch that.
That was disturbing.
My brother loves that movie.
Yeah, so you know about the scene with the kangaroos, right?
He told me that I think a kangaroo died in that movie. It was a whole thing.
Well, what happens is that I don't know the laws in Australia now, but I know that back then kangaroo hunting was very common to like cull herds.
Yeah, my mom has stories about going kangaroo hunting. It's crazy.
Yeah. So what happened in this movie was that they didn't kill any kangaroos for the movie. They just went along on a kangaroo hunt and filmed what was already going to happen. And yeah, it's disturbing stuff. Like it's not like a kangaroo snuff film or anything. Like you look at it and it's upsetting, but then you realize what they actually filmed was probably way, way, way worse. Or most of what they filmed was way, way, way worse. And like you just see like a little bit of it, and it's already the most horrifying thing. But yeah, it was not done for the movie. But yeah, you will see some kangaroos getting shot, which is, I mean, I think what happened is that movie. I'd have to double check this, but I think what happened is because of that movie, then there was a revision to the laws on how much you were allowed to hunt kangaroos or like cull the herd or something to that effect.
Because of the movie.
I thought that was really.
Oh.
Yeah. I think it was because, or in the wake of that movie, then they revisited the laws. Like, maybe we shouldn't allow kangaroos to get, killed like this.
That's so interesting.
Yeah.
I've heard snippets of all that, but didn't know the whole story there.
But it's an amazing movie in general. It's like it gets compared to Straw Dogs a lot, but in Australia. Yeah, but no, I haven't seen Muriel's Wedding. Most of the other Australian movies I've seen have been like Picnic at Hanging Rock. Actually, that might be my favorite.
I would recommend Muriel's Wedding. It's the breakout hit for Toni Collette. It was like her first big break.
Oh yeah, she is Australian.
Yeah, and she's fantastic in it as the main character. I think it was marketed as like a rom-com with like an ABBA soundtrack, but it's actually really sad. And it's
ABBA soundtrack, and I'm there.
Yeah, there's a lot of ABBA.
Oh well,
it surprised me. I thought it was going to be like a chick flick comedy, but it was not. It was really thoughtful.
Nothing wrong with a good chick flick.
Well, I'm a big of course, but it just wasn't what I expected. Yeah.
I know what you mean, though. Yeah. Back in the day, they called them women's pictures, and I remember whenever I'm going through this list of like old movies, and it's like, in its day there was a women's picture, and I was like, these women's pictures are really good. What were these idiots on about?
Funny thing, huh?
Well, I know why they said it. It's because it's not a Western or a gangster movie, so it's for women, which ridiculous. But of course, yeah. Actually, let me check how many times I've seen Hot Fuzz. I'm inspired.
Anything here stick out? I know you don't like Spider-Verse. I think I saw you mention that.
I enjoyed Spider-Verse. I don't really think it's the animation-wise, obviously. But I remember at Christmas, I was sitting with my sister, and it came on. And I was like, okay, we can watch it for a few minutes. And the quippiness was just killing me. My tolerance for quippiness is at an all-time low, and it only decreases with time. Like, even during the action scenes, they just cannot shut up.
I think that Spider-Man's always been like that in the comics too, though.
I know.
It's not a product of the MCU. It's just the character. Probably.
I know. But like, even if you look at like Spider-Man 2, which is one of my favorite movies, then I don't think it's nearly as bad, because it's one thing he gets like when he's fighting Doc Ock, right? Like he gets a line in like once every minute. or if for that he gets one line and then they just fight, and then they're fighting,
True.
and then at the end you've got a train to catch and he's out of there.
Those Raimi
So like
films are different.
they're yeah, and to
they're
me
better.
like I feel like I know it's like, oh, everyone's a Spider-Man and everything, but when you have entire action scenes of every Spider person quipping at each other, I'm sorry that I am not charmed. I
I
am
haven't seen
begging
it in
them
a
to
long
shut
time,
up.
but
I saw the original Spider-Verse twice, maybe 3 times. Um, and like I enjoyed it for sure, and I enjoyed the second one too. But on rewatch, I mean, there's no denying what it is animation-wise. It's really extraordinary. But Lord, yeah, I don't know. I like the second one more than the first one, but a lot of it just struck me in the wrong way. I know it sounds like a bit of a killjoy. I'm sorry, but no, they are fun for sure. It's just that kind of Baby Driver kind of fun where it doesn't stick with me as much. Some great moments for sure, but not really lingering with me in the same way that a lot of other action movies do. Like even Terminator 2 is has its quips, of course. Hasta la vista, baby. What else is that? But I don't think it interferes with the actual heft of the movie itself. Whereas I feel like when I'm watching Spider-Verses, then I'm trying to care by getting through all the quippiness they're throwing at me during the emotional fights. Um, it's a little it's too cute for my liking. That's basically it.
this one might have been recency bias. To be fair, I do think
Again,
it was a
don't
refreshing.
let me feel bad about it, please.
I think it
Because
was
I have
like at
plenty
the
of-
height of Marvel cynicism, and I thought that this felt fresh at the time. This is actually the sequel.
No, it absolutely did. Like I remember, I saw it in the theater, and I was like, this is good. Like for sure, it's not fully my kind of movie, but if superhero movies were more like this, I'd be crazy about them. And it does have very funny moments. I remember I really liked the Indian Spider-Man. I thought he was great. But ultimately, I think it was just. I don't think it's so much superhero fatigue, so much as like I don't really care what the plot is. When you have like the Western animation's answer to Akira, basically. But I don't know. There is too much. There is such a thing as too much quipping, and it just exhausted me in a way that I do not think benefited the movie. But yeah, lots to like. I remember. I also thought there was something weird about. I forget. So I won't make any extreme statements if I'm not remembering it as precisely. But yeah, like I wouldn't mind seeing it again. It's just, yeah. Also, I
gotcha.
checked, and I have seen Hot Fuzz 18 times in my life. 17 times on Letterboxd, and the first time I saw it, I didn't have a Letterboxd account yet. So yeah, it's great. And then in the year 2021, I think I watched it like 7 times.
That's crazy.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 times. Oh my god. Yeah, that sounds about right.
I don't log rewatches like that. I didn't think to do that. But for me, that
Oh,
movie
I
is
do.
Goodfellas. That's kind of my comfort movie. I've seen that a million times.
I've been thinking about rewatching Goodfellas lately because I'd been needing a pick me up, and I remember I saw it 2 years ago when I needed a pick me up. I felt so much better after. It was stupid, and no, Goodfellas is perfect. I agree. Yeah, the first time I saw it, I hated it because I was like, this isn't
really?
as fun. It's dark. Yeah, I don't know why. I think it was. When you're young, you go through Tarantino and, caring about things. Nobody ever cares about anything in a Tarantino movie almost. And you have these scenes of like domestic violence, and I didn't think these guys were, fun or cool or whatever. But then I saw it in a theater a few years later because my friends were in this class, Psychology of Art, and they were like, "Hey, Kev, come with us to the movies. We're getting extra credit for going to see Goodfellas." And I was like, okay, sure, I'll see it. And for some reason, as soon as it started, I was like, this is the greatest thing ever. So, yeah, sometimes you just have to see it again. And ever since then, obviously, Goodfellas is like perfect, pretty much. Yeah, I think Casino is almost as good as Goodfellas, by the way. I don't think it's a ripoff at all, or like a retread or anything. I think a lot of what's being done with
I have not
like
thought
the
about
like
Casino
pushing
in a
that
while, but you're right, it's different.
it's like the way it's lit alone. I think it really pushes it into this like really feverish state that I think is just incredible. So yeah, like it gets. Oh, he only makes gangster movies, which is so patently false. It almost boggles my mind. But of those mob movies, that I think Casino is right up there, and Irishman is incredible too. Of course, very deflated but incredible. And like, oh yeah, he looks old when he's kicking the guy in the street. Okay, I don't care. Like that's to me that's very minor. Um, Again, it's also about an old guy remembering his life. So like yeah, the CGI, yeah, the he looks old, whatever. It does not matter. It's an old guy remembering his life in a movie that's devoid of all the excitement and thrills of the typical gangster movie. So if anything, I think it more like is fitting that like, oh, look at this guy kicking the hell out of this guy on the street. Isn't that cool? Isn't that badass? Isn't that so Tony Soprano? Oh, actually it's jarring and it's off and it's Brechtian almost. And yeah, so personally, I don't mind any of that stuff. And
The
if anything,
Irishman
I
is
think
a
it's
whole other
positive.
discussion. We could talk about that for hours. But
Oh yeah,
let's take a look at your
yeah.
letterbox. Let's see
Oh
Kevin's
yeah.
letterbox. Why don't we? I've got your 5 stars here. A lot of them I've not seen, I must admit. Because you've seen a wide range of movies from different languages. You're just a movie watcher, but I do recognize we just talked about Goodfellas. There it is, Raging Bull. What would
Of
you say is your
course.
favorite Scorsese movie? Out of curiosity.
Taxi Driver. Oh, it's got to be Taxi
Okay,
Driver.
that's very
Yeah,
fair. Very fair.
that's it's perfect. I mean, it's such a cliche. I know. It's like, oh, what are your favorite movies? Drive, Taxi Driver.
You're the
But
guy.
it's
You're the
I
cinema
have
guy.
I have very incel film taste sometimes. But I can also pull out my favorite feminist films if you like. But no, of course it's undeniable. It's for all the jokes about it, it really is extraordinary. I don't know how many times I've seen it, like 9 or something. It's always there for you. The crazy thing about Taxi Driver, which should be there in the 5 stars, although I think it sorts it by when you rated it 5 stars.
Yeah, it's here. It's
So
here.
yeah, it's pretty um so it's pretty recent because I've had it at 5 forever. But I remember the first time I saw it was like the not ideal conditions. I was watching, in my kitchen at like 1 or 2 in the morning, on my laptop. But it's so incredible. It just really drew me in. And at the end, there's the shootout sequence, and there's this one shot in particular. When he goes over, he shoots the one guy, and then he goes back over to the entrance, and he shoots Harvey Keitel again. Um, and in that moment, I physically felt like I was inside of the movie, like I was there. And like, forget immersion, suspension of disbelief, all this other stuff. No, like I physically felt that's never happened to me before or since, and it was the most unreal thing ever. But yeah, so Taxi Driver for sure.
Beautiful movie.
Yeah. All right, feel free to rip into whatever you like.
I feel like it's a pretty high rating for Lost in Translation. I like Lost in Translation. 5 stars is a high praise. I know you're quite.
I don't know if I'd still have it at 5 stars if I watched it today, but the first time I watched it, I liked it. Very low key, and then it stuck with me. And Lost in Translation is cut from the same cloth as Wong Kar-wai in a lot of
Chungking
ways.
Express. Yeah, I see what you mean.
When you see In the Mood for Love, you'll see where Lost in Translation got a lot from. Yeah, I think Sofia Coppola said Wong Kar-wai and Antonioni, and I love Antonioni, as you see by the 3 5-star Antonioni movies in there. But yeah, Lost, it hits at a certain period in your life, of course. And I remember I really loved it, and then remember I wound up watching it twice in one day. And there are very, very, very few movies I've ever done that with. When I was a kid, I used to watch The Incredibles on repeat. When I was even younger, I used to watch Pokemon the movie 2000 like 3 or 4 times in a row. But I don't know that I've ever watched another movie like that twice in the same day. So it does have a very special place for me. There's just something about it. Like, it's weird because I don't even think it's like perfect, which again is why I might not give it another 5 if I watch it again, even though I'm evolving beyond such
Maybe I'd connect with it
manner.
more now that I've grown older. Like, I'm thinking about that.
Yeah, I think
I
you
watched it
will
when I
too.
was
But
like 19 or something.
yeah, but what's weird is, I remember the first time I watched it, I was 24, 23. Yeah, and I was like, I like it, but but it stuck with me, of course. There are all sorts of movies I've seen like this. The first time I'm like, yeah, it's pretty good. I don't really get the hype, but whatever, and it stays with you. And then there are movies you watch for the first time, and you go, oh my god, this is the greatest thing ever, and then you completely forget about them.
It's interesting how that
But yeah,
works.
with Lost in Translation, then like the beginning when he's like on the photo shoot and like the Japanese people and like there's like the lady who gets sent to his room, rip my stocking, and like the Japanese people don't speak English well, and it's funny, like that stuff I don't really like. Um, but it's interesting in that a movie can have scenes you don't particularly like, but the way they set up the rest of it is so perfect that they kind of circle around to being, oh, this is really important. Now, do I think that the Japanese people all had to have such bad English? No, probably not. I'm not really crazy about that, but I don't think it's also like insensitive to Japanese people either. I think there's that's also a short-sighted way of looking at it. But like the stuff with the awkward like pseudo cringe comedy, like he's on the treadmill and the lady and his, I'm not crazy about that kind of stuff. But once it really settles into its groove, with them meeting, I mean, Scarlett Johansson's introduction is better, with her with her husband, but once they meet and it starts moving in, then it really hits this sort of magical sweet spot. So yeah, Lost in Translation is a big one for me.
It's kind of like Eternal Sunshine too, where you see in this like comedic
It is like
character
Eternal
actor
Sunshine, yeah.
in a role where he gets to be more of a authentic character. It is kind of cool to see that.
Exactly.
Bill Murray does a good
Yeah,
job in this.
I'm not a huge Bill Murray guy, but I really like him in the right role.
Yeah.
And this is just perfect.
What else we got here? Blade Runner, I love. Can't
Of
argue with the
course.
perfect Blue. I think I gave it 4.5. It was one of the ones I might bump up, to be honest.
Dude,
Fantastic.
It's so good. Like it got under my skin, just like Under the Skin, another film I have at 5 stars. It got under my skin like very little else, and I've seen it multiple times since then. And last year, I saw it in a theater, and it was well, part of it really annoyed me because there's this trend now, and it's not just me. I've noticed it, like people talk about it on the internet, like friends of mine have mentioned it to me, that a lot of people have started this like trend of like laughing at really unfunny moments in the theater because they're uncomfortable or whatever. And there's a scene in this where you remember the scene where she has to go on that sleazy TV show and like her character gets assaulted.
Oh, yes, yeah.
And, yeah, which is like the least funny thing ever. And then like while they're acting it out, then the guy says, cut, pause, hold it right there. And for some reason, the audience in my theater thought that was really funny. And
That's weird.
I think it's a combination of they were so uncomfortable that they laughed, / I don't know, like I know they weren't really used to anime because anime has not been a big thing over here. So like they're like, oh, it's a cartoon, it's gonna be light. Like, most Czech people, their idea of anime is like Ghibli, and Ghibli is light and fun. So they kind of assumed it was, I don't know what. But then there's the moment, the pizza delivery moment, and there's the scene where I won't say what happens for anyone who sees it, but the pizza gets delivered, and then that one moment happens, and like the entire audience just gasps, like, "Oh my god! I thought this was like Ghibli. This is like anime, right? Like how could something like that happen in this kind of movie?" And yeah, and obviously, everyone. I remember hearing all the people around me after going like, I feel I don't understand what happened at all." So, but yeah, Perfect Blue is so extraordinary. Another thing I'm due for a rewatch of because it's been over a year. Yeah, it really gets to you, especially that ending. When she's like screaming for help. Really perfect film. I like all of Satoshi Kon's stuff, and of course, Chris Nolan borrowed from Paprika heavily for Inception. But yeah, no, Perfect Blue is it. It's one of the very greatest.
It's interesting the point about the theater. I had a similar experience watching Midsummer. There was a scene where I don't even know if I want to. I don't even know if I want to repeat what the scene entails. It's the one where they're like coaxing the guy to.
They're all crying, or with the bear?
It was around that time, and there was uncomfortable laughter.
Yeah.
I think it actually added to the experience. It's like probably the emotion he intended. Like it was kind of this funny yet disturbing.
Ari Aster, I don't really like Ari Aster either.
Really?
Like it feels like he has that very like kind of adolescent sense of provocation. Like there's a lot to admire about his films, but I hated Hereditary. Like with the
hated
cheap,
Hereditary.
Like, oh look, I hated Hereditary. Like with that cheap. Oh look, the little girl got decapitated. Isn't that gross? Like it makes a lot more sense.
It was a shock.
I thought it was a very cheap kind of shock. You know, like there's plenty of shocking stuff that doesn't go for that kind of cheap iconography. I don't know. I think it makes a lot more sense when you look at like his student films. And like, I'm not making this up. He has a student film called Tino's Dick Fart. And it's like, and then there's like the one where is this one called the Strange Thing About the Johnsons, which is about I'm not making this up, a son who tries to repeatedly assault his dad. And that whole thing is like he's trying to gross out his fellow students, like, oh, wouldn't this be so messed up, man? So I feel like that's him just trying to shock, and that sort of thing. I think it works at times in Beau is Afraid, but I don't, and I do think Midsummer's pretty good, but at the same time, like that sort of like, oh, you know, this is really tragic, but it's also really funny. I think there are plenty of movies that pull that balance off. I don't think Ari Aster pulls it off very much. I think he undercuts his own sense of like seriousness and empathy with, you know, that kind of like, actually, isn't it hilarious how this is happening? I don't know. I do like, and I feel like he's also afraid to get as hysterical as the situation calls for. I remember I rewatched Midsummer because I liked it the first time, and you get to that scene where they're all crying together, and I'm like, this feels relatively tame compared to what it actually is. And like, I don't know if he's just afraid to let loose as fully because of, I don't know what. And Beau is Afraid had similar experiences for me, although I had found a lot to appreciate in that. You know, I like that it was kind of a mess, but I felt like it couldn't sustain itself fully. I don't know. There's a lot to like, but again,
I thought you would like Ari Aster, honestly, but
I like parts of him, but I feel like he also undercuts what he has to like about him with his kind of insistence on that same adolescent sense of provocation. Yeah, I don't know.
I like Hereditary, but it's probably my least favorite of his because I wasn't crazy about the ending. And there are some parts that are a little awkward, but I love the performance from Toni Collette, and I love like there's just moments of horror that stick in your memory.
He gets good stuff out of his actors for sure, but
I connected with the family dynamic a lot. I thought it was really effective.
I think he's waiting to come into his own, really. Like, he's got this Western coming out this year, and... doesn't
he have a movie about COVID or something coming out?
Maybe.
I think...
It's the same thing, I think. It's called Eddington. I think it's also got Joaquin Phoenix.
Yeah, that's the one.
So I think... I think, you know, I'll watch it. I'll always check his stuff out, but I'm not really enthusiastic about it.
Actually,
I think...
I really liked Beau is Afraid, personally. I thought it was really cool.
I mean, I thought it was interesting for sure. There was a lot to like about it, and then again, a lot to not like about it, or to like less. I think I disliked the stuff I disliked. I felt less strongly about than in Midsummer and Hereditary. Although I did generally like Midsummer too. But with Beau, then I feel like the first two he got this like universal praise to, right? And like Scorsese saying, oh, the pacing in Midsummer influenced Killers of the Flower Moon and stuff. And with Beau is Afraid, he kind of got like smacked down to reality, where he made this super indulgent thing. Again, the indulgence I think is good, but like he got smacked. He's like, oh, why don't people like this and stuff? So I feel like he needed that sort of like harsh reality check. And I think that might inspire him to, you know, come back stronger or something. So Eddington's playing at Cannes, so fingers crossed that that he, I don't know, gets out of his own way, or in a sense. He can be very funny. I do like a lot of, Birthday Boy Stabman from Beau's Afraid. That stuff was great, but I don't know. I think there's a lot to like.
I think
but
like
he's
Beau is
still,
Afraid kind of played to his strengths. The tone of it's like a Kafkaesque, bizarre
for sure, for sure.
horror.
I
I
would like to
really
see
like
another
that kind of
movie.
thing.
I would like to see something else like in the tone of Beau's Afraid, just more refined.
Yeah, I think
Because
it was a step in the
ultimately
right
the
direction,
whole
in my
like, oh
opinion,
yeah, he
even though it
hates
was
his
more
overbearing
divisive.
mother. Ugh, I don't know. Yeah. There's too much to go through for him. But yeah, it's not like Wes Anderson, where like I am almost staunchly refusing to watch the new Wes Anderson stuff because I'm so sick of his style. Ari Aster hasn't gotten to that point yet for me. I don't think he will, but um, yeah, I think he really needs to kind of get it in gear and focus. And I think he needs someone to tell him that it's weird because he's got great taste. He's inspired. He knows his movie history, like really, really deep cut stuff. Like they'll talk about Teshi Gahara and Nagisa Oshima and Cook the Thief, his wife and her lover, and like stuff that's not your average director's favorites. Like, oh, what are your favorites? Like, oh, Lawrence of Arabia and, other big Hollywood stuff like that. He really goes deep. And I'm like, where is this influence in the movie? Like, I don't know. He's got some cool stuff. Like, I like the animated section of Beau's Afraid by the guys who did The Wolf House, if I remember. But, yeah, I think he's got in the first two, he was definitely, I think, a little too slavishly dedicated to his influences. I think he's got to really break free of them. Sorry.
Interesting, much to think about. I mean, yeah, I think Midsummer's a pretty tight movie, in my opinion. It's like good, solid.
I liked it, but I remember the second time going around, I was like, well, it's got this praise for being like an exploration of relationships, and I was like, but the relationship doesn't really get explored, though. I mean, it's interesting in that, yes, it's a toxic relationship. Yes, it's a metaphor, whatever. But for the perspective that they really like dive deep, I don't really get much sense of character from them either. Um, and so I feel like it portends to be this sort of like, oh, this is smarter than your average horror movie. It's got more character depth. It's got real characters, blah blah blah. And I was like, not really. I don't get that sense from either. I mean, it's got some good stuff for sure. Like the guys. Let me tell you what's really accurate about that movie. The guys who it's like, oh, you got to get a girlfriend who likes sex. This is literally abuse. Oh my god, that when he was like in that mode, I was like, this is so, that was striking a chord. Or that same guy, as soon as they get to Sweden, he sticks his head out the window and goes, oh my god, the women, dude, look at the women. I cannot tell you how many of those guys I have known. So that I really liked. But there's something somewhere along the way where he like got out of the way of like the character and was more interested in like the horror stuff, and the characters are just there. And all I'll say on that is like, it's no Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Texas Chainsaw is also not a character movie, but it doesn't portend to be, and it also operates more in the abstract. And Midsummer I found more literal without the depth, which would make that sort of approach as effective.
I'll have to see Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Still not seen that before.
It's there are some days where I think Texas Chainsaw.
I have heard
is the
Midsummer
best
is influenced also by Wicker Man, which I have not
yes,
seen either.
It is. Wicker Man is very good.
So like Midsummer for me was very fresh, but I guess it's influenced by other stuff that I haven't seen. So
I mean, everything is influenced. I think it's not so much a problem of like him. Yeah, I mean, I think he has to go beyond his influence. Like, Hereditary for me, like, yes, shocking, but then I saw The Exorcist, and I was like, this doesn't hold a candle to The Exorcist, for instance. Or a lot. He's got a lot of that kind of old school supernatural folk horror kind of stuff to him, and like it's interesting, but I feel like he's a lot of this is not just an Ari Aster problem, but in general, a lot of exciting new directors, they tend to do this like revival throwback kind of approach, where the originality of their movies tends to be in that they're reminding people of a genre that hasn't been around for a while. Which, I mean, that's cool. There's nothing wrong with that, of course. If someone said, "Hey, Kev, they just made a throwback to 40s noir," now, well, okay, they did do that with Nightmare Alley from Del Toro, which I did not like. But let's just say someone made a good throwback noir. Like, I would love that, but it's not going to be anything more than like, hey, remember how cool this genre was, unless it does something new. So, like, take Drive, for instance. Drive is like as noir as it gets, but it goes into new directions with its approach to noir. Or think of David Lynch and how he made noir over and over and over again, but it was his version of noir. As opposed to just, hey, Humphrey Bogart, look at the hats, look at the suits, look at the hard-boiled dialogue. So it can be fun, but think of the difference between you take a look at a couple of Coen brothers movies where they talk about noir throwbacks from Blood Simple to Lebowski, obviously, but they make it their own. As you can spot the influences, but they make it their own. And I feel like a lot of Ari Aster and his fellow like A24 brand of horror things, like Robert Eggers, a lot of them is just like, hey, remember this? Isn't it cool? We haven't seen this in a while. Isn't it cool that we're now getting a Shining style movie like The Witch or whatever? So yeah, and obviously Eggers in The Lighthouse does go to some new territory for sure, but I don't like. This is especially this wave of like Evil Dead inspired comedies, and it's like, okay, I love Evil Dead 2 a lot, so much, but the throwback. There's got to be more than just like the throwback, retro, classic, vintage approach to it, and that's why Ari Aster doesn't really do it for me as much.
That's a pretty good point that I hadn't considered.
Yeah.
I myself got bought into that, like the Hereditary being reminiscent of The Exorcist and that kind of thing. Although I'm pretty big. I think The Lighthouse is fantastic, and I really like The Northman as well.
The Lighthouse is fantastic. The Northman, I really soured on.
Really?
Yeah, I just thought it was so flat. I don't like. He does. I don't think Eggers does well with digital cinematography at all. Lighthouse, you feel it. But Northman, I think, was so weightless and digital upon rewatch. And like, I think his obsession with historical recreation tends to just that also makes it like when they play that like baseball inspired game in the Northman, it doesn't linger for me very well. Yeah, I really yeah, and the same with Nosferatu. Nosferatu, I think, was shot on film, so it looked nicer. But again, he's just retreading cliche, and originally he was anything but. So
Nosferatu I was not as crazy about. I did watch that pretty recently. Damn, you got a lot of 4.5 stars. I'm just scrolling through five.
Yeah,
all 4.5 stars.
4.5 I would knock down, even just by like half a star. But again, I've also seen a lot of movies, so there's a lot of good stuff. Especially because eventually I learned what I would like. So I'm trying to, like, for instance, I know I'm not going to like. I mean, I'm a completionist on one side. Yeah. Also, you see Jack Attack at 4.5 stars, which I stand by. But
that's the short film, right?
Yeah. I have my old Incredibles DVD from when I was a kid, so I used to. But yeah, like I'll see Wes Anderson's movies eventually because I want to see like important movies and all that stuff. But I'm not making it a priority because I know I'm not going to enjoy a lot of Wes Anderson stuff. Even like Rushmore, which I'm pretty sure I'll enjoy, I'm not as enthusiastic about. So I'm seeking out the stuff that I know I'll like. But yeah, like also over the years, then my rating system has gotten harsher. So right now, like something such as The Assassination of Jesse James by the coward Robert Ford, still an amazing movie, but I think I would give it a 4, for instance. The Green Knight would definitely not be a 4.5 at this point. That was,
I was going to bring that up. I was not crazy about that movie, to be honest.
I liked a lot about it. I like the slow cinema influences for sure, but now I would knock it down to like a 3.5, 3, which again is still very good. But I'm not. I mean, you gave Last Night in Soho 4.5 when I first saw it because I really loved it, and the second time too. But I know if I watched it again now, because I remember I started watching it on a plane as I was descending, and I couldn't finish it, but I was like, wow, that really was not nearly as good as I remembered. Especially once I started seeing the sources it was pulling from. But even just once I got more of a sense for film in general. So yeah, but a lot of these 4.5s I stand by. Like Unforgiven, Cure, Eraserhead, Touch of Evil. Yeah, stuff like that.
Nightcrawler. I like Nightcrawler.
Nightcrawler I'd probably bring down to like a 3.5 at this point, but Nightcrawler is very good, of course. Oh, Francis Ha definitely is not a 4.5-star film for me anymore. It's like a light 3 at this point.
I haven't seen that. It's who's
But
Greta
it is
Gerwig?
good. Yeah. I mean, it's fun. It's good, but ultimately, it doesn't quite do it for me, nearly as much.
Can I hit you with some of my hottest movie takes that I've never told anybody?
Please.
We're 2 hours in. No one's watching. I'm safe. Okay.
Look, I have I have hot takes for days.
Yeah, you don't like the good, the bad, and the ugly. That's a brave one. I
like it. I just don't love it.
Okay.
I don't even think it's the best in that trilogy. I like For a Few Dollars More or more.
I actually agree with you on that. Yeah, I agree with you on that. I like.
And as far as Leone's westerns go, I think I would take. Well, maybe I would take Once Upon a Time in the West over A Few Dollars More. But my favorite of his westerns is actually Duck You Sucker, which I think also has the other title, A Fistful of Dynamite. But I saw it as Duck You Sucker. So that's my favorite. That one's fantastic.
I'll check it out. I haven't seen it.
But yeah, my hottest take is you'll see at the right side of the top row. I have The Conversation at 5 stars, and to me, that is Coppola's best film, better than both Godfathers and Apocalypse Now.
Is that I haven't seen it, but I know it's well liked.
That's a scorching take.
I guess The Godfather is obviously like in another level of.
I mean, better than both
reception.
Godfathers and Apocalypse Now. Like, it's okay. Like, if you say, "Oh, Godfather 1 or 2 isn't his best because it's Apocalypse Now," that a lot of people are going to say, "Yeah, of course," or that's reasonable at least. But The Conversation, I am very certain of this. Look, I love Apocalypse and both Godfathers, of course, but Conversation is unreal good. I think that's Coppola at his best. Yeah,
I'll check it out. The Conversation. Yeah. Okay, yeah. First one. I do not like The Big Short. I'm not huge on The Big Short, but I feel like The Big Short is referenced all the time as this brilliant. It's like the movie about finance. Whenever finance topics come up, The Big Short always comes up. I feel like.
I enjoy The Big Short in so far that it's fun, and it has some very good moments, and Gosling is incredible. But I agree, it's not. It's kind of snobby to say it's a smart movie for dumb people, but that is kind of like the I don't think it's a dumb movie, but I do think that it's the kind of thing where it touches on a subject and mentions it, and then it leaves people thinking that there's more depth to it than there is. And there's nothing wrong with not having a ton of depth to your thing or to your movie. And I think what it does well, but it's because it's not trying to be. I guess you could make the argument that it is kind of trying to be like this statement. Because I didn't like McKay's other movies. I didn't like Vice at all, and I didn't like his. I didn't even see Don't Look Up actually, but The Big Short. I know what you mean. Like, it does kind of get touted as this.
I feel like people will think I'm stupid for saying this, but I think that a lot of the explanation of how I don't know. The finance stuff worked was just exposition dump that it was like a bunch of word salad that didn't really compute for me when I was watching it. Like, I feel like I'd be better served watching a video essay or something on YouTube about the financial crisis. It's like, and there was the one scene that's famous where they're like, if this is confusing, let's cut to Margot Robbie in a hot tub to explain it. And then she's doing the same thing everyone else was doing, saying a bunch of stuff at me that I don't really get. And it's like,
I know what you mean. Yeah. Like,
that in particular felt like, it's like, look how quirky we are. Let's break the fourth wall and cut to Margot Robbie. What are you doing?
I know the quirk I didn't like so much, but what was funny was like those like dumbed down explanations made less sense to me than the actual explanations they were like. You know that scene where like Gosling and Steve Carell and all those guys are like arguing about what are they called? Yeah, it really stuck with me. FICO scores and everything's about to drop out. So, however it is, because I haven't seen it in a very long time, but it's a great scene, and that to me made sense. And then I think they cut to like Anthony Bourdain explaining like how he orders fish and keeps it over the weekend or whatever, and I was like, this does not make sense to me. But what they were just discussing, that made perfect sense. So, yeah,
People
I get
also
what you
get
mean on
pissed
that. I
off at
think
me when I compare it to The Wolf of Wall Street, but I think they're very similar movies.
Wolf of Wall Street is way better for sure.
And the Wolf of Wall Street could have had the same problem if they, over-explained things. But I think that I understand what was going on in The Wolf of Wall Street. They're selling these penny stocks to idiots. It's promising them a dream, and they're getting rich off that. It's like
that's all you need
this
to know.
machine of con men. And I understand. Like, they could have made it confusing if they were less elegant about it, but it made sense.
No, that's all you need to know. Yeah, that it's illegal and immoral.
I actually thought The Big Short came out before Wolf of Wall Street, but it came out after. So I can't help but think like they're trying to be like the Wolf of Wall Street with the very like, we're gonna make some money, guys. And then there's like
that was definitely Adam McKay going. From Anchorman and Will Ferrell comedies to becoming like a serious filmmaker. Which that's not necessarily a bad thing or a bad aim at all. But I think. I think The Big Short works. It's very entertaining. It is informative, but it overdoes it at times, like with the Margot Robbie stuff. I do kind of like just that it kind of has that contempt for the viewer. Like it's like anything that has the guts to say you're so stupid, you need Margot Robbie to explain this to you. That I kind of admire, just because it has a sense of perversity that we really, I think, are lacking now. With everything becoming so marvelized, it's very rare that you see a genuine sense of like nastiness, and everything kind of gets watered down into this sort of like generic nice pleasantness. We've got movies dedicated to why villains aren't really villains, they're just misunderstood, and even our actual villains are not so bad, and it's anything to avoid upsetting the audience. And so for something to I'm not saying this is the best example of this, but to be so brazen in basically daring the viewer to think about like, am I so stupid and so shallow that I'm going to jump at the scene with Margot Robbie in it? I kind of admired that in a way. Now the explanation was bad, but this is what I mean. It's complicated because
there's a comedy to that aspect of it.
Yeah,
you could do it like that.
The explanations are bad, but like the ideas behind them are interesting. So ultimately, I don't really care for McKay's new style. I do have an appreciation for that movie. I don't think it's a great movie, but I appreciate it, and it's very entertaining, if nothing else, for most of its runtime. And Steve Carell does a great job. I really liked him. So the stuff with Christian Bale, I think that was a little weird, like with how he's like playing drums and listening to Metallica.
He's like a quirky genius, and everyone else is stupid. And there's so many scenes in a boardroom where he's like, "What are you doing? The houses are the most solid investment." He's like, "You guys are all stupid." Yeah, look how smart I am, everybody.
Yeah, and he dresses in sweatpants and sandals or no shoes, whatever. But
and yeah, I would say I didn't like how Steve Carell the whole movie was so guilty about like, should I make $1 million betting against the economy? And the real guy was not saying this stuff. Come on, I feel like they added that in.
Well, of course, they fluffed it up, kind of like they fluffed movies like Moneyball up. But what I did like is that moment where he's like, I'm always unhappy. It's like, I'm never happy. It's like, I'm not happy unless I'm unhappy. However exactly he said it. Basically, I was like, that rings true. And I know like it's true for these kinds of guys, but I know so many people who, don't work anywhere near the world of finance who are, they love being miserable and because it's comfortable for them. And I thought that was a very interesting kind of, that to front and center that kind of thing was great. There's like other dumb stuff like the guys who have Brad Pitt come in and help them, and they're like making jokes about
There's
the
that
the
scene
NSA
where
is
they're
listening to your
like, "Don't
phone
celebrate. You just
conversation.
bet it against the American economy." Brad Pitt's like, "You guys did something
Yeah.
bad."
Yeah, but like I mean, more stuff like they're like, "Oh, we're being listened to by the NSA, right? We won't say dirty bomb." And I was like, "Okay, guys, come on. I know we
Mm.
want to make it funny so people like care and stuff, but yeah." So lots of like, arguably more to dislike, but overall, it is a breezy, fun experience. And again, as a Gosling obsessive, I thought he was fantastic.
He's fine. Yeah,
Yeah.
he's always pretty good.
He was the way he's like looking down at them. Like, yeah, I just had lunch with Harry Dean Stanton. I was like, I want to punch this guy in the face. Great job.
Yeah, I suppose that's all to say. But people love that movie, and I don't get it.
I
That's
think,
all right
uh, yeah, I think it's definitely an overrated movie because it's such a mainstream film and it actually kind of has a brain in its head. And so we're so used to, dumb stuff that it winds up looking genius relative to our usual expectations.
though. Another hot take I have is I love Villeneuve. I love Blade Runner and Dune. Haven't seen what's his other one, Prisoners or something. I haven't seen that one, but I wasn't
That was
crazy
pretty good,
about
yeah.
Arrival. Arrival is very well received, but I don't like it. What do you think of
Arrival is
Arrival?
it's good. I liked it the first time I saw it. Um, I think it kind of has that thing where like Villeneuve always has this thing where he's like fighting against the script because like a lot of the stuff in Arrival is cheesy and bad. Like that whole like, can I have 10 minutes before we leave? We're leaving in 5. Stupid like stuff like that from the generic military guy. When Jeremy Renner says, "Hey, you want to make a baby?" and I'm just like, God. See, but
I
that's
also
why I
hated
like
that
his movies.
line. Yeah.
That's why I like his movies so much because I recognize the dialogue is terrible, but he makes it work. Like I'm sure he knows. Like people were giving him flack last year because he said, "Oh, I don't like dialogue in cinema. I would love to make movies without dialogue." And people are like, "What do you mean without dialogue?" But like, it's exactly why I think he's so interesting because there's these kind of like two thoughts on Villeneuve. Like he's either your first favorite director, or then you become like a film snob and you're like, oh, no, I am unimpressed. I'm even after entering my film snob era, I still love him. I think he's great. And I find like these kinds of interests where yes, the scripts he's given are bad, but he fights against them. He makes those bad lines work, or more likely, his aesthetic sense. A lot of people find it dry. I don't really find it that way at all. It's puzzling to me, but his aesthetic sense or just his general level of craft kind of overpowers the crappy dialogue. So for Arrival, I think there's a bunch of stuff in it that I don't like, but generally I think it's a good film and it works. And yeah, ultimately Villeneuve is all about the tone, and I think that his handling of tone is excellent. And I think you will like Prisoners. It's like again, it's if you like Memories of Murder, it's kind of like that. It's got
Okay.
that sort of like dour tone to it, like Fincher, but I like it way more than any of Fincher's procedurals. Maybe Zodiac's a little better, but it's around that kind of thing for me. So yeah, Prisoners, very good.
I didn't know he said that about dialogue. It kind of makes sense knowing his movies,
I
I
really
guess.
was. I was very happy when he said
Uh,
it because I'm also very anti-dialogue.
well, I mean, like many things, it depends on what you're going for with the
Yeah, of
movie.
course, of course. It like if you have a screwball comedy where the fun is in the joy of watching these people fire back and forth at each other. Okay, dialogue is big there. Uh, or if you, I love those 1930s screwball comedies, and a modern equivalent is like the Coen Brothers. They have a lot of screwball elements in their stuff. But if we're looking at like Tarkovsky movies, I'm like, oh, 20-minute stretches of nobody talking. This is fantastic.
Who's that one?
uh,
Aaron Sorkin, like a very wordy.
Oh God, I hate Sorkin. Oh no, no, like I enjoy The Social Network, but again, there's so much dumb stuff in it too. and I feel like it's
I
Fincher
I think
fighting the
that movie
script.
is really funny. I view it as a comedy. It's like
It's a good movie, but like whenever Sorkin gets into his like Sorkinisms and just talk, ugh, like even someone who like has a lot of dialogue, like famously Tarantino, right? Like I like Tarantino stretches where people aren't talking, which is why I loved Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. And the more it's a talk fest, the more I don't know, but
yeah, it
yeah,
depends. You can
so
overdo it.
I'm not an Aaron Sorkin guy at all.
Well, that's interesting because I feel like a big focus of Arrival was the dialogue. Like, there's a lot of the main
Really?
character in
Yeah.
particular. I thought was
Well,
very frustrating. With she kept making all these quips and like,
see, that's the thing with Villeneuve's movies. Rarely remember the dialogue, but what I do remember is like when she's trying to teach the aliens how to speak. Like, yes, I'm sure the dialogue in that was cheesy, but the way it was put together visually, I thought audio visually for that matter, it was very tactile, and I was so taken with that I didn't really mind the yeah, I didn't mind the cheesiness of the dialogue at all because of how well the rest of it was put together. So I thought,
maybe I
I mean,
was in
I can
an
understand people
annoyed
being put
mind
off by
state
it for
where
sure.
like her dialogue was annoying me, and then I wasn't able to enjoy the rest of what was good about the movie at the time.
I
That
mean, there
could
are
have been
definitely
it.
moments like that's basically Spider-Verse for me. So I completely understand.
Oh, okay, true.
Yeah,
That does add up.
yeah, but yeah, I understand. Arrival's not one of my favorites of Villeneuve's, but it does showcase a lot of his strengths. It's weird because I bemoan CGI with a passion if it's done badly because it's almost always done so badly. But Villeneuve, like he understands that, like he would rather do it physically always. But like even in Blade Runner, there's so much CGI in that, but he insists there's got to be something physical on the set, so we're not just green screens and tennis balls, and it looks so much better as a result. And that's why Dune looks so great, and Arrival as well. So I think he has CGI figured out. Not this.
Well,
We'll just fix it. We'll just create the movie in post. It's he really has nailed that like
we got
nobody
Blade
else,
Runner
I
at
think.
5 stars, and one of the most beautiful movies of. I was just gonna say modern times. It's actually been a long time since this came out, but you know what I mean.
Oh, 8 years. Yeah, I know. But I haven't seen it in a while. Actually, I've been due for a rewatch because I need a. Yeah, with how stressed I've been lately, like I keep saying, "Oh, I need to watch this new movie," and I have this thing against rewatching movies too much because otherwise you kind of get caught in your own bubble, and you never try anything new, and um, and that's a peeve of mine. People who just never try new stuff. But I also, need to recognize that sometimes you got to go with your favorites, and
Hmm.
you need the comfort once in a while. People go, "Oh, I need my comfort picks." It's like, well, not you can't just go with your comfort picks all the time. So nowadays, most of my rewatching is done whenever I get the chance to see a movie in a theater, because that I think that justifies it. But I also don't have to justify it, quote unquote, and can just. So yeah, I'm tempted to rewatch like earlier, Goodfellas, Blade Runner, uh, stuff like that.
Maybe Arrival deserves a rewatch. I watched it in theaters when it came out. Didn't like it, and I haven't returned to it since. I
I
don't know.
would
I kind of can't
say
be
check
bothered
out.
rewatching it though. Like, it doesn't excite me to go back to it.
No, no, I would say if it's not exciting you, I would just check out Prisoners first.
Prisoners.
Check out his yeah, Enemy is good too. Sicario is very good. So yeah, I would just check out his other stuff where the dialogue doesn't get in the way as much.
All right, BKC. I'll hit you with my
Actually,
final hot take if you.
sure. Oh
Okay,
no.
I wouldn't say that I don't like Drive, but maybe I don't get Drive, is what I would say. Maybe I don't understand it because I've watched it a couple times. I
Mm-hmm.
just don't connect with it or see what other people are seeing. I think because everybody loves this movie
Okay.
that I've ever met, and I don't want to
Okay.
like. I don't. Maybe at this point, maybe I'm the problem or something. Because
Well, it clearly is you that's the problem. No, okay, I understand. The first time I saw Drive, I was kind of kept at a distance from it because I was like, yeah, okay, crime movie, cool, whatever. And I've seen Drive 9 times at this point. 8 times on Letterboxd, and the first time I saw it, I didn't
9
have an account.
times.
Yeah. So, yeah, this is another one of my comfort movies. I used to watch it every year on my birthday. And then last year it was in the theater, and then this year it was in the theater. So, okay, so Drive is, for me, it's fantastic because once you get past, the violence and the crime story, for me, it's overwhelmingly romantic. And it's about a guy who has this romantic side to him, his very sensitive romantic side, but he cannot really reconcile that romantic side with the unresolved inside of him, which is why he has such, bursts of rage and violence. Even though he seems so, he's calm, cool, put together, but when really pushed, then he goes way too far, of course. So, to me, it's ultimately very beautiful because it's sensitive without being precious about it. Dives into the kind of battle between this dreamy desire for this beautiful human connection. Because I mean, above all else, it's more of a romance than anything. It's really front and center, the relationship between Gosling and Carey Mulligan, and early on, the first 45 minutes, you got the cool getaway, which, I mean, beautiful escalating tension, process, emphasis, things like that. I love that opening scene. But then you really get into it. Obviously, the soundtrack is to die for, but the soundtrack is to die for because obviously in its own right, but in the context of the movie, elevating the character's emotional states. That's why it's so big for me, because it is so imbued with emotion. Like, again, the first time I was like, yeah, cool songs, whatever, but it kind of leaves me cold. But then I kept thinking about it, and then I rewatched it, and I had one of the most emotional. Maybe that's not the. I found a ton of emotion all throughout the movie, whereas previously I had felt almost none. So,
Interesting.
and then that was my obsession. This was a couple months after I'd first seen it. So even like little things, like obviously there are all those extended, those protracted silences between him and Carey Mulligan, not saying anything, just looking at each other. And I mean, In the Mood for Love, all I'm saying. This is way before I'd seen In the Mood for Love, of course, but that kind of unspoken connection is really the beating heart of the movie. So that's why the rest of it works. If you care about the connection, you care about the characters, you have that connection with them, then you go with them through anything. And that's why the rest of it hits really hard. And I think for what it is pretty much a perfect movie. I've subjected it to as much scrutiny as I possibly could, and it still is just extraordinary. Yeah, so I'm a huge Drive truther. I know it's the biggest cliche in internet cinephilia, like, oh, Drive, yeah, of course. But like, I feel like even though it seems like it's tailor-made to appeal to this kind of audience, I don't think it really is, insofar as it's cool, but more in the sense of, that whole like repressed guy thing where guys can't talk about their feelings, and they can only hint at them through their masculine rituals, which, by the way, is the subject of the best ever movie made about men, which was made by a woman. It's called Beau Travail by Claire Denis, one of the greatest. But yeah, and I think this kind of, the same Wong Kar-wai elements, the longing, is so intrinsic to this movie that's why guys see it. And, the joke, like, yeah, literally me. I mean, haha. But it does ring so true for so many, particularly because it's like, yeah, I don't just want to, yeah, okay, there's the cool stuff, the cars, the action, whatever. I'm not a car guy at all. I cannot name cars that I see on the street. I once went out with a girl, and she was naming all the cars, and I couldn't. She thought I was pretending just to get her to do it, but I really cannot. But so I don't really care about the cars. Yes, the action stuff is cool and everything, but it's cool because you care about him, and it's not you don't care about him because he's a big movie star, but because there's something about him. It's hard to explain, haha. But there's just a sort of like unspoken sensitivity there that he hides for other people. But it's kind of a if you know sort of thing. And that leaves you. I don't know. That kind of sentiment is underlying the whole enterprise of trying to connect with her and her son and all this, and just have some sort of clean life. But then of course there's the ugly flip side, which is that when it's challenged, it goes into some really ugly territory. It's like, oh, maybe I don't have such a good handle on myself after all. So there's a lot to reconcile. I mean, it gets so much out of such a simple setup, and and even the way it's shot and lit, I think the camera work is extraordinary, and it's not just technical wizardry, because on the surface there's no like extreme long takes or anything that people like to point and ooh and ah at, but in the way that lighting and framing is so suggestive of everything that's going on between them. So everything works. Yeah, I think it's fantastic, and this one is worth revisiting. Once you get past the cool of, yes, Michael Mann, Jean-Pierre Melville, Walter Hill, like, yes, cool, professional, all that stuff. But earlier I was talking about like Michael Mann's movies where the woman is just kind of there because a real life barbecues and ball games, and yes, the men being unable to connect with them is a big part of it, but in this one, the foregrounding of the relationship with the woman who brings so much to it, I think it brings a real feminine side to a movie, and a lot of guys are afraid to get in touch with their feminine side. So, but in this movie, they're in touch with their feminine side often without even realizing it. Because Gosling is sensitive, but he's cool, but he's still sensitive. That's the whole point. And so this is like an acceptable way of getting in touch with their feminine side. And I think that's why a lot of them will gravitate to it. Like, yeah, it's cool. Yeah, the soundtrack rules. Yeah, the cars, Gosling rules. Yes, of course. But it's that that unspoken sensitivity to it that really makes it, sting. Well, sting, yes, and connect so deeply beyond just the surface pleasures. And of course, there are so many surface pleasures. It's lit and shot so gorgeously and so precisely. It's a marvel. One of the best looking movies of the century, for sure. That's about it. Oh, I also like that when Oscar Isaac comes back from prison, then like, yeah, there's like a rivalry between them, but like then he tries to help him out. Like they kind of become buddies in a way, in a strange way. So I appreciate that as well. Yeah, that's basically it. I gotta stop now.
That was a great analysis. You're good at that. I guess when I watched it, I didn't get all that, but maybe maybe it's due for a rewatch. When I watched it, my impression was like I was not invested in the relationship between Ryan Gosling and Carey Mulligan. I felt like they didn't have chemistry, to be honest. And the Ryan Gosling being all silent and brooding, it wasn't cool to me. It was like I like if you compare this movie to Taxi Driver, I think they're pretty similar. Where there's like a loner who is like kind of unhealthily obsessed with this woman he finds. Robert De Niro's character, I think, has a lot more nuance going on, and like the performance is so electric. Like I'm so invested in this character.
I know what you mean, because that's kind of what I had the first time. I was like, oh, it's just a romance because there's got to be romance, right? But with it's narratively similar to Taxi Driver, but Taxi Driver has more of an immediate emotional charge. I mean, not to say that it goes away on rewatches, of course. And it's got a ton of depth because it is about this specific character. Like he speaks for a lot of people, but there's also the specifics of this character because it's going in depth. So it is both literal and abstract. Whereas in Drive, it's more in the abstract. But the main difference is that the tone is more emotionally restrained because it's got that. I mean, it feels weird to compare it to Lost in Translation and Wong Kar-wai, but it does have, especially in The Mood for Love, but it does have that sort of Jean-Pierre Melville, like I don't know if you've seen Le Samurai, which I'm sure you would also appreciate. Um, which is maybe the clearest reference point for this film, but all of Melville's stuff, which I love. Well, I don't love all of his stuff, but like his major movies, I think are incredible. Or actually, another way to look at it is that you know how in The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, Clint Eastwood is very kind of emotionally restrained even as he's going through all this stuff. That kind of tradition of like Leone and Melville and Michael Mann is where this sort of thing leads to, where it's emotionally restrained, but in all those others, they're emotionally restrained and don't really go beyond that. And here, that emotional restraint with their like almost taboo relationship, because she's still married, then that leads to something. I mean, they're not going to speak about it, and that's part of why I find it so beautiful, so touching. So yeah, it does operate more in the abstract, almost in a Lynchian fashion, and there is a lot of Lynch influence here as well. But I think that it's got just the right amount of heart to make you go beyond this abstract creation into more of a like this guy gets it. Like the first time, yeah, I was also left pretty cold on it. Yeah, it's cool, but I don't really go for surface level cool a lot of the time. And then it just kept sticking with me, and that's why the soundtrack is kind of the key, not just because it's great music, but because of it's this kind of magical form of communication that goes beyond what words could express. Like when they're going on the drives and like they're holding hands, they go to that little magical place beyond the LA River. Like that kind of stuff is doing all the emotional heavy lifting, and this desire for this kind of dream life is that golden hour moment is just gorgeous, I think. So yeah, I think I understand where it comes from, but I think once it clicks for you, you'll never not feel it again. Like there's even a moment like after the initial getaway when he's in the car in the garage, like as the credits are coming up. It's literally just him sitting in the driver's seat, looking off to the side, and for some reason I saw that and I was like, he gets it. I thought it was incredibly moving, and I can't really explain it. There's just some sort of sensitivity to the look, and then once you see it, you're like, the sensitivity is there throughout the whole thing. Yeah, that's basically
It
it.
sounds like there's subtlety to Ryan Gosling's performance that I
There's
wasn't picking up
a
on.
lot.
That maybe
Yeah,
you probably wouldn't pick up on the first viewing, possibly.
I
It sounds
definitely
like you
didn't.
didn't
Yeah,
either.
no, not at all. But for
Okay.
some reason, it stuck with me. Yeah,
I think like I watched
I
it the
think
first time and
what
I didn't get it, and I sort of got mad about like why am I not connected with this? And then I watched it a couple more times and I still didn't get it. But I think you've
I
given
think
a good
once
explanation here.
you
No one else I've talked to about it has given as good of an explanation as you just did. They always talk about it in these vibes-based terms that I can't really understand, that aren't really
I mean,
getting to the heart of what they like about it.
vibes are great and everything, but like a movie needs more than vibes, Like Wong Kar-wai is vibes, but Wong Kar-wai also has a lot more than just like, the vibe of wanting to go to McDonald's at 3 in the morning, which is from Fallen Angels. Um yeah, cool, but it goes beyond just that, because if
And
you've got a vibe and a tone, that's great, but it doesn't that doesn't stick with you as much as this kind of does. So like, yeah, I mean, obviously I like the vibe of it too, but it's more I mean, I wouldn't go so far as to say it's a character thing, but once you see him, like when he puts on the mask at the end, knowing what he's about to do, like he has to kind of like disconnect from this like violence inside of him. He has to hide behind it. Um, and even like right before the elevator scene, when he's standing out there with Carrie Mulligan, and like he's saying like, "Oh, I got this money," Danner was into some bad stuff, and like if you wanted, I could go away with you, and I could protect you, and then she slaps him, and then she like wipes away a tear, and it's not like a big dramatic moment in close up or anything, but it's just like there's so much, and like he doesn't even look up after she slaps him. He's like, "Oh, I could protect you," and he's talking to her like he's a little boy. And like when she wipes away the tear, then it's not like cue the violins. It's silent, but you have that same sense of emotional restraint while still experiencing the emotion, which allows you to experience the emotion more honestly than if someone, starts playing the violins and you go, oh my God, this is so sad. So it lets you really experience it more directly, and be able to think about it, and process it yourself rather than being beaten over the head with this is the big emotional climax of the movie. Yeah, because like I love the car scenes, of course. I think the second chase in particular is beautiful. I think it was inspired by North by Northwest. Um, but that doesn't stick with me as much as the character journey, or yeah. And as far as the violence goes, like I think that's also crucial that it is as intense as it is, because that is that like flip side of that whole coin. And if you are going to have that kind of violence to your character, to your movie, then I think it does have to hit that hard, especially when you are showing that this is the ugly side of it, you know. So yeah, I think it all points in the same direction in the same way, and I also think it's one of the most economical movies ever. Like every time I watch it, by the time the end credits roll, I feel almost refreshed from how. And I don't think it's over quickly, but it lingers just long enough in like those scenes where they're just staring at each other, not talking for 30 seconds, and then but by the end, it's not like oh man that wore me out, like kind of like Aliens. It's over 2 hours. And by the end, you're exhausted. But with Drive, like even though a lot goes on, then it feels so refreshingly simple that it's like, yep, that was just right. The credits rolling at the 97-minute mark. Yeah, so that's basically it. I think once you look at it through that kind of romantic lens, then then you see it, then it kind of unlocks it for you.
All
Now,
right.
if you look at it that way and it doesn't work, then it doesn't work. There are plenty of great movies that personally don't connect with me as much as, or maybe it's just a matter of time. For years I was like, yeah, In the Mood for Love's pretty good, I guess. But yeah,
You and I think if I watched Chungking Express like 5 years ago, it might not have connected with me in the same way. Like maybe
exactly. Yeah,
maybe you've kind of inspired me to revisit Drive here, and like try to pay attention to those things you're talking about. 'Cause
yeah.
I was young when I watched it. Maybe I didn't really understand what it was trying to convey. Like maybe I
I
didn't.
think I think there's a lot going on, obviously, because yeah, you do have the sense of cool, because yeah, it would be cool, in the broadest sense, to be a badass getaway driver, and you're strong and silent and whatever. But when you go beyond that to like, what do you do beyond being strong and silent? And then it goes into those other shades, and that's why I think it's so rewarding to come back to.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Maybe it's a misunderstood movie too, like Mad Men or something, where people
A
point to
little bit
Don
for
Draper
sure.
as like this epic businessman, but he's not really.
Exactly, yeah, or like American Psycho. I mean, the fact that American Psycho is now looked at as like an instruction manual is okay. To have
Yeah,
a skincare routine is not a bad thing. Obviously, that's a very good thing. But like it's the same thing as Taxi Driver. It's like, oh yeah, this guy's super badass, and it's like, well, it's also not as simple as, oh, this guy is a complete piece of garbage who you shouldn't want to be like. It's a lot more detailed than that. But yeah, I think it does get misunderstood in that way, because it does. I mean, on both sides, there's the guys who goes, "Oh, he's literally me," and then there's the people who go, "Oh, it's just another dumb male protector fantasy." And I was like, if that's a male protector fantasy, it does a pretty bad job. But I think there's some truth to both sides of that. So, and that's what makes it the stuff in between, the details, is what makes it so rewarding for me personally. Again, sometimes the fact that it is emotionally restrained does mean like you might get the feeling of, oh, there are emotional scenes, but I don't feel the emotion. Why is that? But that can be a very purposeful technique. In Refn's other movies, he does this thing where like people will say things with with this completely flat affect. Like you've seen Lanthimos's movies,
Yeah, the lobster.
yeah, like the lobster, stuff like that. Yeah, so he kind of does that, And it's this sort of distancing effect where, by saying it without emotion, you really have to focus on what's being said and think about it. Plus, it can make, for a funny contrast if someone says something very emotional in the flattest tone of voice ever. Yeah, so I think it's what I really admire about Drive is how it's very, very precise and all like moving in service of the same end, and showing all the details to that end. So it really, really works for me. And I have this unhealthy habit of like daring my favorite movies to let me down when I revisit them. It's like, you better have the same level of magic you did before, or you actually sucked all along, which I don't do so much anymore. But yeah, Drive
That's
has
an
never.
interesting experiment. That's kind of an interesting.
It's a very, very bad thing. Don't do it. Yeah, no, Drive has never let me down in this regard.
Maybe I'll catch it if it's playing in theaters. There's a theater that plays old stuff sometimes. Yeah, that'll be the
You
time to
got
do
to see it on the big screen.
Yeah.
The last year when I saw it on the big screen, it was already, amazing. I loved it. But this year, for some reason, the theater I saw it in, it was a different theater, and for some reason, the sound was real. I think like the sound mixer at this place is like a DJ or something. But the sound when the songs were playing was so overpowering. I was like, now this is the way to see and hear it. But yeah, you gotta have that. You gotta have the sight and sound as big and loud as possible.
Well, all right, you've convinced me to give it another shot.
Yeah.
I thought of one other
Enjoy.
hot take I have. What do you think of John Wick?
I like John Wick for
You
sure.
like I didn't like John Wick. That's one other one.
I think there's a lot about John Wick I don't like. For instance, I really dislike how long 2 and 3 are. And even in John Wick 1, I felt it was kind of dry. Like, that is a movie
I've only
that,
seen
to
John
me,
Wick 1, by the way, to be clear.
Well, here's what's interesting. I love the action scenes. The stuff between the action scenes, I don't care for. And that's a bad sign. Like, John Wick 1, I think, is very dry. I appreciate that it doesn't have any pretensions to it, though. It's just, look, action movie, the end. And if you're going to do that, you have to have good action scenes. And it has good action scenes. So as far as that's concerned, I'm satisfied. Now, the first John Wick I thought was a little dry and okay. It feels like it takes itself a little too seriously, which is weird. And then 2 and 3...
That's the vibe I got, yeah.
Yeah, and it's strange, right? So I didn't really connect with it as much, although I did like some scenes very much. Then 2 and 3... 2 has some insanely good action, but it's also really long. I don't really buy its sense of cool, but I appreciate its sense of professionalism. So I like that. I like that it's not quippy. That's one of my favorite things about it. It takes itself too seriously, but on the other hand, it's not, throwing quips at you every 2 seconds. And then 2 and 3, some great action scenes go on way too long. Okay. But then 4, for some reason, 4 is like almost 3 hours long. And I was like, oh yeah, oh boy. But for some reason, 4, I saw it in the theater. I thought it was incredible. I still think it's really good. What's really weird is that at first, it seems to take itself a little less seriously, but it also like elevates into this like higher register. And it becomes almost operatic in a very strange way. And like the way you hear people describe Leone's Westerns, that was the feeling I got from John Wick 4. It was really weird because at first I was like, yeah, more John Wick stuff. But number one, he talks a lot less. I think like half of it, he doesn't have that many lines, and half of his lines are just him saying, yeah. And I'm like, this is it. This minimalist approach is what they've been needing the whole time. If they were all like this, I would worship them. But the fourth one, so if I don't know how much you are into action movies. I love action movies if the action is good. I like it better if the movie itself is good, but if just the action scenes are good, I'm okay. So, yeah, I appreciate 2 and 3 for the action scenes. The rest, I'm like, this is kind of a slog. But 4, maybe it takes a few minutes to get going, but once it gets going, it doesn't stop, and it goes on for almost 3 hours. It is extraordinary, and the action scenes are the best of the franchise. They get to Paris at one point. There's this one. Oh my, it's. Whew. Summer of 23 had some great action movies between this and Mission Impossible. So yeah, I really, really loved John Wick 4. So that one, and I'm one of the biggest John Wick skeptics I know. So yes, not crazy about 1, not crazy about 2 and 3. Love 4. I don't know how that works.
It sounds like you got the exact same criticisms I have of John Wick 1, where I thought it was kind of.
Yeah.
I went into it kind of hoping for a campy action movie, and I got a movie that was taking itself very seriously. In my opinion, it took a while to get to the action, and I didn't really care about the characters at all. And a lot of the acting was like flat, in my opinion. Like the line, even Willem Dafoe's in it, and I felt like he was not acting very well for some reason.
I think it's weird because in 4, I feel like that dryness, that flatness is gone. And like in a way, it's yeah. I don't know why. I don't know how it took them until the 4th one to really get it in gear like this, but they really nailed it. I thought it was extraordinary. Yeah. So right now, I'm not watching any action movies until I see the new Mission Impossible because I want to be it's been a long time since I watched an action movie, so I want to be as fresh going into that as possible. But yeah, I really big fan of
John Wick 4.
Of John Wick 4. So I would say, if you want to reap the benefits, go through 2 and 3, suffer through them. Because did you at least like the action scenes in 1?
Well, I guess so, but I don't love the aesthetic of like guys in suits in like a club and they're like Russian mobsters. Something about that doesn't do it for me. Can't really explain why.
I know that it was generic. I mean, it's a very generic setup. There's no denying that.
Yeah.
So I also didn't really connect with that. And I think once you get to 4, it's got more personality.
It sounds like it's got more variety for what you're describing.
Yeah. That's the thing. 4 has so much personality to it. Like I don't really care about the lore itself. Like I guess it's good that they put some effort into it, especially because it's original. But 4, for some reason, everything clicked. It's so much more colorful. It looks beautiful. The other I know there's this kind of like direct to video action aesthetic of the warehouse stuff in the first one that I'm not crazy about. They look better over time, but 4 looks beautiful and it's more colorful both visually and in terms of personality. And there's even like a big guy in there, like who just it's a guy in a suit, but it's so much more. It's even playful at times, and there's even like an actual gag where like he goes up these I forget what are the names of the steps in Paris. You know what I mean? Hang on.
Oh, I don't know. This calls for Google.
Yeah, the 222 steps, the 100-meter staircase in Montmartre. So he basically, I mean, it's kind of a spoiler, I guess, but he has to fight his way up the 222 steps, and he's close to the top, and then he gets knocked all the way back down, and then he has to do it again, and it works. It's fantastic. So, like, they really finally developed still a subdued sense of humor, but I don't know. They reeled in the dialogue. They upped the color of everything else. The action is extreme, and you know how there's like a lot of those down periods in the first one. Well, in the 4th one, it just keeps going and going and going and going and going and going, and that is what I love in an action movie, when it can just sustain itself for that long. So yeah, big fan. I was very, very pleasantly surprised with how much I liked that one.
I think I'm with you. That sounds more up my alley. And I agree with you on John Wick 1. I got one more hot take, and then I think we'll stop. I thought of it as well during the middle of that conversation. Please. Top Gun Maverick. What do you think of that one?
Fun. I don't know about good, but it was fun.
I just feel like I'm watching propaganda. It
of course,
doesn't feel good at all.
I hate the first Top Gun. I think it's so bad. I hate it so much. And yeah, Tony Scott's a good director and everything, but I do not like the first Top Gun at all. But
when they're in the planes, it's undeniably pretty cool practical effects, and
that's it. Yeah, I mean, because they're really in those planes, so
yeah,
that I like. The rest, I didn't. But it was a fun. It was if I would prefer that if you're gonna have a big summer movie like that at least it's fun, and and it can be as dumb as bricks, but if it brings the goods in terms of the enjoyable, action experience, then that's all you really want.
Yeah, it kind of creeps me out how everyone's having fun being in the army together and they're all buddies. It creeped me out.
I mean, it's super. That's why I don't connect to it at all either. My favorite part is when Jennifer Connelly shows up, and I'm like, oh, I like Jennifer Connelly. But yeah, I don't care for that either. But the stuff in the planes, like the rest, just about doesn't matter. So that's it. I mean, it's cheesy and dumb, and they're playing Great Balls of Fire. Yeah. But yeah, I agree that generally I'm not a fan, but again, I also hate the first one.
I haven't seen the first one, so I don't know.
I
probably would not like it.
Junk. 80s schlock at its worst. Like, I get the homoerotic undertone is like interesting, I guess, but it's also so stupid. Yeah, not a fan at all.
All right, well, we'll probably end it in that, BKC. I had such fun chatting with you about films. I like to chat about films. I like to have an excuse to do so. I gotta say, I feel like you should make some movie videos on YouTube. You can rattle off a lot of this stuff very well, off the cuff. And
I will.
If you're just more focused on like, let me analyze this one movie and go. I think people would like it.
Yeah, I think so too. I just have to throw out as many Pokemon videos as I can right now, and then move on to the next part. But yeah, absolutely.
Well, all right. Thank you for indulging me.
Of course, anytime.